As soon as Lu Yujun entered the room, she saw Yin Zhuoling staring at the TV in the dark with a cold face. As the colorful light on the screen changed, Yin Zhuoling's expression looked weird, especially in the middle of the night, adding a gloomy atmosphere. Tired, Lu Yujun couldn't think too much, just wanted to lie down and sleep for 3 days and 3 nights. She walked past the TV quietly without disturbing Zhuoling's sight. Just before her fingers touched the door, the statue sitting on the sofa suddenly spoke. The tone was flat and cold, echoing in the dark space, forcing people to sweat. "Don't you want to explain your whereabouts for the past day and night?" Yin Zhuoling asked coldly, and her head facing the TV tilted a little, just giving Yujun a sharp eye roll. Yujun shivered all over, and immediately realized that she would not be able to rest as she wished in a short time. She smiled guiltily and said flatteringly, "It's rare that you watch TV so late. Are there any exciting programs? Don't try to change the subject. You should know that my old age routine is that I will never stay up late unless I have to. Tonight, I am here to wait for you. Why don't you tell me what big things you did during the 36 hours you were missing?" Zhuoling narrowed her eyes and looked as cute as a Japanese doll. But Yujun knew very well that the more harmless her smile was, the more dangerous it would be to others. Her situation now was like being in a Japanese horror movie. There were no bloody murder scenes, but the atmosphere created made her tremble all over. "I just had so much fun chatting with someone that I forgot the time and didn't come back. You don't need to worry at all, and you don't need to wait for me." Yujun's eyes were erratic, and she looked like a thief with a guilty conscience. Zhuoling certainly wouldn't let her get away with it. After 2 dry laughs, she walked in front of Yujun, crossed her arms and squinted at her. "What do you mean by chatting? Do you mean playing games online at a reserved table in an internet cafe? Or playing mahjong all night? Or riding a motorcycle to the beach to compete with others?" After living under the same roof for so many years, if she couldn't even grasp Yujun's leisure activities, she was not qualified to be someone's best friend. With all the details exposed, Yujun had to confess shamelessly. "All of them. All of them." Zhuoling stared at her lazy, squinting eyes and whispered in disbelief. "Do you think you are still young? You are already 24 years old. But you are still restless and do some boring things that only young boys would do. Is this fun? 24 years old is still young." Yujun muttered innocently. "Not everyone is like you, aging rapidly after adulthood. Although you have a baby face and cheat, your life is like an old monk, going to bed early and getting up early every day, which is monotonous and boring. You can't really forget that you are still a single young woman, right?" Zhuoling threw her another cold look without courtesy and immediately told her to shut up. "You have graduated from college and are now a member of society. You should be more mature. You can't just skip classes like you did in your student days, right?" Yes, you are right. But have you seen any mistakes in my 2 years of work? This time, the situation is special. I must say goodbye to my friends before I can leave with peace of mind. You should understand this, right?" Yujun thought that she had a legitimate reason. Zhuoling responded to her with 2 cold snorts. "Not bad. You still remember that you are going to transfer back to your hometown to work. I thought you were so crazy that you even forgot how to be a nurse." Her eyes intentionally or unintentionally slid across Yujun's tight clothes, and the sarcasm in it was self-evident. Yujun pulled her leather jacket uncomfortably and said in a naughty way, "Dr. Yin, please don't be so angry. Did you get mad at me, an innocent nurse, because you were beaten up by the director in the hospital during the day? Do I look like such a bad person? Besides, I'm just a trainee doctor. How dare I take my anger out on you nurses? So you deserve it for waiting for the door until the middle of the night." Zhuoling was in a bad mood and every word she said was full of thorns. Yujun didn't even dare to breathe, fearing that she would be more angry if she was not careful. "It's rare that you, who is impatient, also have times when you are waiting for someone. Is it because your boyfriend left and you were so lonely that you had to watch TV to kill time, and you can even read a few words to someone when he comes back?" Yujun's joking statement was intended to ease the atmosphere, but she accidentally touched the minefield and stepped on the center of Zhuoling's boredom, making her face darker. "If you know what's good for you, don't mention him in front of me." She gritted her teeth and said. These days she tried to keep herself busy, so busy that she had no time to think about the man who had left her for more than a month. But her worries were still exposed by someone. Whenever she had some free time, the figure of that man would automatically appear in her mind, making her unable to calm down and sleep, so she had to find a punching bag to vent. And her roommate became the most convenient target. Yujun knew that Zhuoling was upset, so she quickly moved her position to avoid the minefield. Okay, okay, let's not mention Han Che. Zhuoling's eyes immediately became deep and terrifying when she heard the name. Seeing her Yasha look, Yujun wanted to bite off the dull tongue in her mouth. Where is Ishu? Is she asleep? In order to prevent herself from making mistakes again, she had to pull out another roommate as a buffer. She is on night shift today. Zhuoling's voice was so cold that it made a cold wind blow in the summer night of September. Yujun subconsciously rubbed her arms and said tremblingly, then what's the important matter when you wait for me to come back? She brought the focus back to the original topic, hoping that Zhuoling would explain it quickly so that she could be relieved a second earlier. Unexpectedly, Zhuoling walked back to the sofa and said calmly, "It's okay. I just want to find someone to scold." Seeing her turning the remote control without taking it seriously, this time it was Yujun's turn to be unbalanced. Thinking that she dragged her tired body back, she had to endure a lot of fronts before she even saw the pillow. Not only was she worried, but she also had to smile aggrievedly. How could she just say it's okay to get rid of it? "I'm moving out tomorrow. Do you really have nothing to say?" Yujun said discouragedly. When Han Che was about to leave, Zhuoling was mumbling from packing the luggage to the departure of the train. Although the content was not very touching, at least it can be seen that she cares about Han Che. Han Che has only lived with her for 3 years, and she has so many complaints. They have spent twice as much time together as he has. How can she just say it's okay and then disappear? It's so unfair, isn't it? No wonder some people say that women's friendship cannot stand the test. Zhuoling turned off the TV and looked at her helplessly. Seeing her serious face, she understood that she was insisting on something boring again. "What do you want me to say? Don't leave? Is it useful to say it? When the time comes, you will be transferred back to your hometown." She didn't have nothing to say, but she knew that it was useless to say it. It was an established fact, and no matter how much you said, you couldn't pull back the pace of leaving. Han Che and Yujun were the same. "I don't want to leave you either. It's rare to meet such a good friend in life, and I can't bear to leave. But my parents are old, my father is sick now, and as an only child and a nurse, I must go home to take care of him nearby. Everything is forced by the situation, and I am helpless." She was sad when talking about parting. If possible, she also wants to continue to live a peaceful but laughter-filled life with them as before. Zhuoling sighed deeply. "Forget it, we will separate sooner or later anyway. 1 year earlier or later doesn't make any difference. Besides, it's not like we won't see each other again after we leave, so there's no need to make the atmosphere so heavy." After saying that, she laughed first. She has known Yujun for many years, and this is the first time they have talked so seriously. The rest of the time they either quarrel or expose each other's scars, but they can still cultivate deep feelings, which is really congenial. Yujun thought about it a little later and laughed. In 2 years, Zhuojia and the others will graduate, and by then they will also separate because of work. Thinking about it this way, the separation now does not seem so unacceptable. That's true. The bad fate with you may never be broken in this life. Yes, but if you continue to be so childish, always hanging out with your group of fruitless bad peach blossoms, staying up late in internet cafes, playing mahjong, or playing some boring bets, sooner or later you will break the ties of this world before me, and it will be when you think you are still young," she said hintingly. "If Yujun continues to abuse her body like this, be careful that one day she will die young for no reason." Yes, what Dr. Een said is right. I will keep it in mind. From now on, I will cultivate my character and stop being absurd," Yujun said not very seriously. Even if Zhuoling didn't mention it, she has restrained herself a lot in the past few years. If she didn't want to say goodbye to those brothers once and for all, she wouldn't force herself to accompany them to the end. Who taught her to be a good friend who values loyalty? Of course she has to take care of everything. "Do you think I will believe it? Your credit was ruined within a month of our acquaintance." Zhuoling curled her lips. She had heard many promises from Yujun over the years, but she never took them seriously. "I'm serious this time. Maybe my life will change if I change my environment. I will definitely have a perfect boyfriend that will make you jealous," Yujun said unconvinced. "You never lack male friends." Zhuoling looked at her strangely. Seriously speaking, Yujun is a fresh and lovely beauty. With a slender body and a typical oval face, she is a weak classical beauty, which naturally attracts the attention of many opposite sexes. But that is only at first sight. When you get to know her well, you will find that Lu Yujun is a two-faced person. She is really a rude woman who likes to take advantage of others, but she will put on a polite and virtuous appearance in front of elders and strangers. Since she entered college, she has used this trick to deceive the admiration of many stupid men, and then let their fantasies be shattered. If you can withstand the blow, be a good brother. If you don't give up, leave it aside and wait and see if Yujun will change her nature one day. Otherwise, you have to leave sadly with a broken heart. So Zhuoling often laughed at her and said that her peach blossom luck is quantity rather than quality. Although there are many people who like her, they have never really dated. After graduating from college, the report card of love is still blank. When it comes to this, Yujun must defend herself. You can't always say that I deceive people with my looks and scare men away with my personality. Maybe the problem is with you. Your fate is too hard, which drags down my love luck with Ishu. If she is two-faced, Yin Zhuoling is the reincarnation of a dead leaf butterfly, with perfect mimicry. Although she is small and has a baby face, she looks innocent and harmless. In fact, her stomach is full of strange ideas, and any one of them can make people exhausted, not to mention her super strong fate, which is simply reincarnation from the devil. Okay, I'll wait and see if your peach blossom will upgrade and bear fruit after you leave my magic range. Zhuoling pulled the corner of her mouth and said with a fake smile. She was tired of Yujun's theory of mutual restraint, and she could never provide strong evidence to prove that she harmed them. Okay, I don't believe there is no one in the world who appreciates me. Yujun can't stand being provoked. As long as someone incites her, she will definitely be the locomotive that rushes out. Zhuoling continued to sneer. She didn't believe that the impulsive Yujun could make any progress, and it was hard to imagine that any man could stand her rude personality hidden under her beautiful appearance. Being able to sleep peacefully for 8 hours seemed like a thing in her previous life for Yujun. After chatting with Zhuoling late that night, she cleaned herself up and buried her head in the pillow. She wanted to sleep until she woke up naturally, but her mother's considerate morning call beat her to hell. Not only did she not make up for the energy lost from staying up late, she had to get up immediately to pack her luggage. Because her mother loved her daughter so much, she helped her to arrange her uncle's truck and came to help her carry her luggage back to her hometown in 3 hours. For her, this was simply a bolt from the blue. Before she could refuse, the other end of the phone had already disconnected the line in a hurry, leaving her speechless. God knows that she has spent most of her time just going around to say goodbye to friends these days, not to mention the handovers at work. How can she have extra time to pack her luggage? But she, who looks gentle and kind, cannot disobey her mother's kindness and destroy the impression of her elders. She had to ruthlessly dig up Zhuoling, who was sleeping, and Yishu, who had just finished the night shift. The three of them hurriedly stuffed their things and barely caught up with their uncle's car of love. Although this mistake before leaving troubled her roommates, this way of saying goodbye is more her style than a mushy hug, right? This is the only way she can comfort herself and the two unlucky best friends who are not getting enough sleep. She took a nap in the car on the way back home, dreaming that she could enjoy her mother's care after returning home and concentrate on being a little white pig. But the cruel fact is that she was enslaved as a big yellow cattle. As soon as she stepped into the house, the Weather Bureau issued a typhoon warning. What was waiting for her was not the sumptuous welcome dinner she had imagined, but the toolbox her mother threw to her, asking her to help prepare for the typhoon on behalf of her sick father. The next few days of life were as chaotic as a typhoon. In addition to settling the trivial matters of life, she had to greet the elders everywhere and tell them that the filial and decent Yujun was back, and to trouble her as much as possible if there was anything. When she saw off the last relative with a wry smile, it was already the last day of her vacation. Without a chance to breathe, she reported to the new hospital like a zombie with a pair of panda eyes and a lazy skin. Hello everyone. I am the new Lu Yujun. Please give me more advice. She introduced herself to her colleagues at the nurses' station weekly. Her dying appearance attracted everyone's attention, and the kind angels in white still smiled politely to welcome her, and dispersed without saying much, leaving the head nurse sitting in her original position with a solemn expression to arrange work for her. Yujun, I know you have only been here for 1 day and are not very familiar with the hospital environment. I shouldn't give you too much work, but we have limited staff in the surgical department, so we will assign you a patient to take care of full-time. The head nurse said apologetically. It's okay. It's not my first day as a nurse. It's just one patient. I can handle it. Although she felt that the head nurse's apology was a bit inexplicable, Yujun still accepted it with a smile. Even if it was her first day on the job, it was just a patient. Was it necessary for the head nurse to be so polite? It's not that simple. The head nurse's face was more embarrassed. The patient's injury is very critical. Does he need special care? Yujun asked curiously. Isn't this a general ward of the surgical department? Serious patients should not be sent here, right? No, the patient just has a simple fracture and some trauma. Just change the dressing on time. It's just, his identity is a bit special. The head nurse explained very tactfully, while handing her the medical record. Special identity? She flipped through the patient's basic information. Qi Yanxi. I don't remember anyone with the surname Qi who was a noble official. Judging from her shallow knowledge of the performing arts, he shouldn't be an international superstar, so what special identity could he have? Take a look at the medical records first, and you'll understand when you go over to change the dressing later. The head nurse said nothing more and left with a worried look. Yujun looked around in confusion and found that the remaining seniors in the nurse station also looked sympathetic, not knowing how to start. Some even said, "Come on," or "Take care," when they passed by her, making the atmosphere mysterious and making her even more confused. Why was the turning point of her life also a strange beginning? Seeing the scene in front of the advanced single ward, Yujun understood why the head nurse was hesitant. She forgot that there were special people like them. Two strong men over 180 centimeters tall stood on both sides of the door. Their strong and muscular bodies blocked the door like a wall, not to mention their uniform-like black suits and the same style of short, flat heads. This is clearly telling people that they are brothers in the underworld. No wonder the seniors would bless her. Such a ferocious look would indeed scare the angels in white, but not her. Zhuoling often said that she had zero temperament, but she had one more courage. She could be afraid of ghosts and monsters, but not bad people. She glanced at the two-door gods and walked to the door calmly with the medicine in her hand without taking it seriously. What are you doing? Brother A on the right, with a horizontal face, stretched out his thick arm to block her way. She was not surprised to be stopped, nor was she scared by the other party's fierce tone. She pushed out the treatment car impatiently to show her identity. I'm here to change the medicine for the people inside. Are you a nurse? Brother A looked at her whole body questioningly, wondering if this delicate classical beauty in front of him had gone to the wrong place. She is more suitable for filming costume dramas. Can't you tell from my outfit? He rolled his eyes. At the moment, she was in a bad mood and her patience was very limited. This brother had better be sensible and not waste her time. Why haven't I seen you before? Brother A and Brother B on the opposite side looked at each other and confirmed that everyone had seen this person for the first time. Today is my first day at work. She swallowed the swear words that were about to come out of her mouth and said with gritted teeth. She knew that this group of gangsters not only had many rules, but also only exercised muscles but not brains. Every little thing could be made big and even turned into a social event. It's just a change of medicine. Why are you so verbose? Why send a newbie to help our boss change the medicine? Where is the head nurse? When he heard that she was new, Brother B obviously cast a distrustful look. She's very busy, she said patiently. Why are these brothers so shy? It can be seen that the big brother lying inside must be very irresponsible, cowardly and afraid of things, and he might even look wretched with a pointed face and monkey cheeks. When he thought of this, Yujun, who had a bad impression of the underworld, looked even more disdainful. Our eldest brother cannot be taken care of by a woman of unknown origin. Go find the head nurse. The two-door gods reached a consensus and felt that she was not qualified to see their boss. Their contemptuous tone angered Yujun. She couldn't stand this kind of self-righteous attitude the most. Who do they think they are? Just a small fry, but they can do evil so confidently too. The fatigue and resentment accumulated over the past few days suddenly broke out and distorted Yujun's originally elegant facial features. She rudely let go of the treatment cart, one hand on her waist and the other pointing at Brother B. I said, the head nurse is very busy. From today on, I will take care of your boss. What do you mean by driving me away? Do you want your boss's wound to rot and make him disabled, or do you hope that he will die so that the people below can revolt and usurp the throne? I don't care what conspiracy you have. I just want to do my job well, and no one can stop me. The two grown men were shocked by her shrewish aura. They could never have imagined that a classical beauty who looked delicate and elegant would scold people like she was teaching her son, and scold so smoothly. What happened? Why is it so noisy? The eldest brother just finished breakfast. Can't he be quiet for a while to let him digest it well? Feeling the commotion outside, Kamuping curiously poked his head out of the door and saw the two brothers staring at a nurse like a water chicken, and couldn't help wondering. Along, Ahu, what's wrong with you? Along turned around when he heard the voice, and the fat on his face was squeezed into confused lines. Brother Ping. She said she is a new nurse and wants to go in to help the eldest brother change the dressing. But what? She is a beautiful nurse, of course she should be invited in immediately. It's so rude to block the angel in white outside the door. Kumuping scolded the door god a few words, turned his head and smiled flatteringly at Yujun. After venting, Yujun felt a little better and looked at the other party with cold eyes. The man who just came out seemed to be of a higher status than the door god. His expression was changeable and his eyes were lively, making it hard to guess his age. Although he was also wearing a black suit, he looked like a fashion model on the catwalk with a dark red shirt. Even though he had let out a breath, Yujun's face was still ugly. He snorted coldly and pulled the cart back. He walked past Kamuping and went in. He looked even more arrogant than the Gangster brothers. Brother Ping, is this okay? It was the first time that Ahu saw such an arrogant nurse. He couldn't help but worry about the future of the big brother inside. No problem. Otherwise, is the big brother a fake? Muping left an unreliable guarantee and followed with a smile of watching a show. Yujun, who was walking in front, not only had heavy steps, but also kept his mouth busy, complaining unceremoniously. I am a commoner and do not understand the rules of your gang. But can you consider the time and place before you act? This is a hospital, not a martyr shrine or the Sun Yat-sen Memorial Hall, and there is no need for special guards. You let two men with fierce looks stand in the busy hospital corridor, which is not only unsightly, but also blocks other people's way, causing inconvenience to the people and the hospital. Don't you feel guilty? I don't understand. Your boss is just injured and hospitalized. Who do you want to show off for? Or is your boss a rare animal with 3 heads and 6 arms, and you have to queue up to visit? Her endless criticism stopped automatically when she came into contact with those dark eyes. She guessed wrong. This boss was not a rat-like person, nor did he have 3 heads and 6 arms. He looked very upright, and his square face looked ordinary at first glance. But once you touch that piercing gaze, it will attract your attention, and you can't help but look at him a few more times. In short, he is a man with a lot of flavor, dignity, and looks like a big brother. From the moment Mu Ping stepped out of the room, Qi Yanqi paid attention to every move outside. Of course, he did not miss any words of the nurse. When he saw her in person, he was still shocked by her delicate appearance. He could not imagine that girls nowadays are so powerful. Appearance and personality can be completely different. He was introverted and did not stay shocked for too long. After looking at her for a few seconds, he retracted his eyes to the book and ordered slowly, Mu Ping, tell them to go back. But big brother, this must be done. Mu Ping quickly approached the bed and said disagreeingly, since it will cause trouble to the hospital, we must cooperate. There was an authority in the gentle bass that could not be refuted. Mu Ping frowned his cheerful smile and said without giving up, is this really okay? You promised us that we can move freely. Now they will be sent back. They will not accept it. They have been standing for so many days. That's enough. Qi Yanqi raised his eyes and looked straight at Mu Ping. He nailed him to the spot with his eyes alone, unable to resist. Okay. Mu Ping sighed dejectedly and walked to the door to convey the eldest brother's will. Seeing the eldest brother's courage, Yujun didn't feel anything special. The complaints in her stomach were still endless, and she kept muttering, since you know it will cause inconvenience to others, why didn't you ban it from the beginning? You have to drive people away after you have had enough fun. These big brothers. She stood at the end of the bed and recorded some information. Although her voice was not loud, she could hear it clearly. She was still indifferent as usual and read her book silently. Such a quiet atmosphere did not last too long. The loud voices of 3 men outside the door immediately drove away the peace. Second in command. Along and Ah who greeted in unison. From their particularly vigorous tone, one can't help but wonder if their current action is to stand at attention and bow. Second brother, you are finally back. Do you know how anxious the brothers were when this happened when you were away? Everyone was panicked, thinking that you would fly back immediately to command and dispatch. If the boss hadn't yelled send him to the hospital before he fainted, we might still be standing there, looking at the injured boss and not knowing what to do. Mu Ping's joking self-deprecation revealed his admiration for the second in command. You handled it well. Is the eldest brother okay? Yujun heard another low voice, different from Qi Yanqi's calmness. This voice was flat and cold. It was okay before, but I can't guarantee it after. Mu Ping said suggestively. Yu Jun knew very well that the uncertainty in his words referred to her, the ignorant new nurse. Really? The second-in-command's voice was still stable, and he was not scared by Mu Ping's words. Brother Yong from the South Gang got off the plane with me and came to visit the eldest brother to discuss business matters. Can I go in now? Everyone is here. Is it okay not to go in? As soon as Mu Ping finished speaking, a group of strong men with more gangster colors immediately rushed to the bedside and bowed to Qi Yanqi respectfully. Old Qi, is your injury serious? Will it affect our business? A middle-aged man who looks like a gang leader spoke in a natural and rustic way. Yanqi closed the book with a constant expression on his face. I'm sorry to worry, Brother Yong. My injury is not serious and will not affect my work. Please rest assured. He responded neither servilely nor arrogantly, without blinking, and his majestic demeanor was just like a gangster tycoon in the movie. I knew you were trustworthy. I'm the best at judging people. There will be no problem leaving it to you. Ha. Hearing his assurance, Brother Yong smiled with relief, and the sound was so loud that even the glass was vibrating. This scene made Yu Jun a little confused. He felt like he was watching a Hollywood gangster movie, and the commercials accidentally switched to a Taiwanese rural drama. They are both gangsters, but the image of Qi Yanqi and this Brother Yong is really very different. Just take good care of your injuries. I won't bother you anymore. But you are also very lucky, living in such a high-end ward, and there are such good nurses to take care of you. If I am shot one day, I will come here too. The service in this hospital is pretty good. Brother Yong looked at Yu Jun unceremoniously while speaking. She knew what was in his narrow eyes. If she was not busy changing the dressing and they were walking fast, she would definitely give him a punch as a souvenir. Without paying attention to her fierce eyes, Yanqi turned his head and spoke to the man in the corner. Haoyan, are you done? Everything is arranged. Haoyan spoke for the first time after entering the door. When he heard this voice, Yu Jun remembered that there was a second-in-command. He looked in the direction of the voice and couldn't help but be stunned. According to general standards, the smiling young man in red clothes was good-looking, and Qi Yanqi, who was lying, also had his own unique flavor. But this second-in-command was even better than them. Not only is his figure perfect, his appearance is impeccable, and he exudes a noble temperament, like a cold and arrogant black panther, so elegant that it is fascinating. Perhaps he is too perfect. This second-in-command is dreamy and lifeless, with a single expression like a statue. She couldn't help wondering, is appearance one of the requirements for being in the underworld now? Otherwise, how come the three brothers in the room are so good-looking? Feeling her gaze, Haoyan glanced at her indifferently, without reaction, and calmly walked to the bedside to check Yanqi's injuries. Sorry, I came to see you so late. It's just a minor injury, it doesn't matter whether you come or not. She said indifferently, looking down at the wound opened by Yu Jun. What minor injury? Second brother. You don't know how much blood the eldest brother lost that day? It scared me to death. Mu Ping, who was unwilling to be lonely, also came over to watch the nurse change the dressing, and exaggeratedly described the details of that night. Yu Jun listened and murmured in disapproval. You won't die from such a small amount of bleeding. If you dare to do such a thing, you must have the courage to take risks. Are you a man if you make a fuss and ask people to stand guard and comfort you just because you are injured? She said it with disdain, and the strength of her hands was not light. She deliberately pressed hard on his wound, and had to vent all the anger she had just suffered. Feeling her malice, Yanqi only frowned slightly and had no intention of speaking. Haoyan noticed her little action, and his handsome expression did not change. He just asked coldly, when can he be discharged from the hospital? After rebandaging the wound, Yu Jun glanced at the patient and replied indifferently. If it is purely from my personal standpoint, of course I hope that the troublemakers will leave as soon as possible. But as a medical staff, I can only tell you helplessly that you will bother me for a while, and I hope you will cooperate well. After that, she walked out with her head held high, not caring about the consequences of such an attitude. Seeing her arrogant look, Mu Ping, who couldn't hold his temper, was the first to attack. Are all nurses nowadays so high profile? Even patients have to look at her face. Haoyan lowered his eyelids in an unfathomable manner and said calmly, Brother, take care of yourself. But the patient was still as steady as a rock, reading his book quietly, and nothing could shake him in the slightest. The autumn heat was raging outside, making the sky unusually blue, the leaves unusually green, and even the old buildings reflecting the light. Everything seemed so prosperous and full of vitality. But why was the room like another world just across the wall? Yoojun pushed the treatment cart on the road and had an indescribable strange feeling. It was so hot outside, and although there was air conditioning inside, there shouldn't be such a pink smell. She looked around in confusion and finally found something unusual. There was a small group of people gathered about every 10 steps on both sides of the corridor, and each small group consisted of 2 or 3 people. These people were either whispering mysteriously, hiding strangely behind potted plants, or pointing and talking at her when they saw her walk over. Some of them were patients, some were outside visitors, and some were colleagues from other wards and even young doctors, and this group of people had one thing in common: they were all women. Yoojun walked and counted in confusion. The closer she got to the door, the denser the crowds became. Then she slowly began to figure things out. Before she could figure it out, she was grabbed into a corner. She was dragged to the dark stairwell. Just as she was about to fight back, she froze when she saw the other party's battle. So scary, so scary. Now she deeply realized the meaning of the phrase, "Women are not weak." Being surrounded by a group of hideous women is definitely 1,000 times more terrifying than fighting a group of thugs alone. Yoojun was so scared that her mind went blank. She didn't know why she was dragged here by them when she was walking peacefully, and why was she surrounded by people? It had been less than a week since she reported to this hospital. She was too busy adapting to the environment to have time. How could she have time to offend people? She could challenge a group of rogue men with a smile, and she was confident that she could fight and protect herself, but she had never been through the scene in front of her. Not to mention that she couldn't figure out the situation. Even if she understood the reason, she was not sure that she could get away safely. After all, their expressions were too weird. Although they were laughing, they made people's scalps numb. You have something to do? She quickly stretched out her arms to block their approaching offensive. Her friend was right, women are indeed troublesome. Although she is also a woman, she still has to speak the truth, especially in such an inexplicable situation. Only trouble can explain everything. There were about 7 people surrounding her. Each of them approached her with tense nerves. Until she spoke, they seemed to let go, relaxed their stiff shoulders, turned around and moved closer to Yoojun. The leader even wrapped her outstretched hand tightly in a disgusting way. The strange atmosphere subsided, and their expressions melted into sweet syrup in an instant, which made Yoojun shiver again. Yoojun, I am the secretary of 7C. It doesn't matter if you don't know me. From now on, we are good sisters. The hand that was held tightened again, and the coquettish good sister shook off Yoojun's goosebumps. She only heard the disgusting voice, and before she realized the meaning of the words, others also rushed to become sworn brothers with her. Her hand was grabbed and held like this, until her brain nerves could not bear it, and her wildness broke out. What is going on now? She roared with great momentum and shook off the jade hands of the sisters. Who did she offend today? Less than an hour after going to work, she was pulled around and asked to make friends inexplicably. She had had enough. No matter how terrible the woman was, no matter how many people there were, no matter how weird the atmosphere was, she didn't want to be at a loss anymore. She must find out who she offended today. The girls were stunned by her yelling. They didn't expect that a beautiful classical beauty would have such a loud voice and such a strong momentum. Did they misjudge her and use the wrong trick? Looking at Yoojun's unusually determined eyes, the girls had no other countermeasures. The leading Secretary 7C decided to tell the truth. You are responsible for the single suite in 10A37, right? The secretary cleared his throat and returned to his original shrewd tone. Yoojun nodded, and the previous side light flashed through his mind again. You know they are unusual, right? Yoojun nodded again, and the second light flashed through Hunton's brain. Their identities are special, and their looks are even more extraordinary, especially the cold, handsome guy. Oh! The secretary immediately fell into another world, moaning in ecstasy, coupled with the response of others. If an uninformed person passed by, he would definitely think it was an adult film scene. Hearing such a lascivious voice, Yoojun should know what's going on no matter how slow she is. It turns out that all the unusual things are because of that gangster group. They are indeed special people, and they can easily cause trouble even when they are hospitalized. These few days, she finally adapted to the environment and her work got on track. She can finally treat them with a normal mind, but now if she doesn't put the blame on them, Does she dare to ask these sisters for it? So, Yoojun said coldly, inserting into their soft fantasies. Although she didn't dare to be an enemy of them, the bad temper she suffered was not easy to dissipate. They had to bear the bad breath. Her cold, sidelong glances calmed down the sisters and finally said what she meant. You know, there are few opportunities to enjoy the hospital environment. Now there are a few handsome guys to admire, so the sisters must seize the opportunity to see them and make a profit. However, they have special identities, low-key style, and are elusive. We can never know when they come to visit the patient and when they leave. Even if we ambush here, we can't wait for them. We can only take advantage of the gap between the door and the door to comfort the expectation of the whole day with that brief glimpse. Do you know the pain of lovesickness? As he spoke, the secretary was lost in thought again, and immersed in the romance of secret love with the sisters. Yoojun rolled her eyes impatiently. I don't know. Of course you don't know, because you can see them every day, and even meet them and talk to them. How can you, who are so happy, understand our suffering? Ah, love. It makes people live and die together. The girl's eyes were shining with tears, and Yoojun couldn't tell whether they were expressing their true feelings, or like her mother, who was bored and cried a pack of tissues even when watching TV series. Do you really love them so much? What about your husband? Yoojun pointed at a pregnant woman and asked. Even she thought the scene was ridiculous. She was just an ordinary nurse. When did it become her turn to care whether others loved her or not? The pregnant woman who was named sniffed and glared at her unsympathetically. Do you know what an idol is? An idol is a spiritual sustenance for you in the cruel reality. My husband is short and fat. A while ago, he was too fat and had difficulty moving. He fell down the stairs and broke his leg. Now he also lives on the 10th floor. But they are both patients. Why is Mr. Wei injured so heroically, while my husband is paralyzed in bed and crying all day? Of course I love my husband. But can't I fantasize and escape from reality for a short time? Otherwise, ask this child to see if I love them. The pregnant woman pulled out a little girl less than a meter away from her feet. The little girl stood in a big character with her hands on her waist. Of course my mommy has to love my daddy, because Uncle Chi is mine. Hearing this, the pregnant woman immediately looked away and lowered her head to glare at her daughter. Stupid kid. Didn't you say you prefer the younger one and won't compete with mommy? Hey, don't teach your kid bad things. The younger one is mine. What's so good about that young boy? My second in command is the best. That's right. What? Mine is the best. Not at all. In less than a minute, everyone's attention turned away from Yoojun, and they fought hard to defend their idol. The scene immediately changed from a court of trial to a noisy lie market. Yoojun's head was getting heavier and heavier. If she let them continue to make trouble, she would not be able to work today. Quiet! The angry roar of the Hudong lion overwhelmed everything, and even the guards on the corridor were called over by her. Seeing the crowd gathered at the door, Yoojun was desperate. Tell me, what do you want me to do? Don't talk nonsense. I just want to know the purpose. Let's do it once and for all, so that she won't be surrounded in the stairwell every day. After the women looked at each other for a while, the secretary took a step forward as a representative and put something into Yoojun's hand. Is this your purpose? Yoojun stared at the digital camera in her hand in disbelief, then looked up at the group of women who nodded, and the sense of absurdity in her heart made her very angry. You are our last hope. What if I don't help? Yoojun couldn't imagine that this group of women who were on average adults and had social experience would actually be like teenage blind star-chasing girls, holding cameras and peeping at people's buttocks all day long. And the target was a group of problematic people whose good and evil were unclear. You can try it. The secretary smiled charmingly, and the Yuanyang Yinyan beside her also curled her lips sweetly to agree, and the 100-centimeter tall girl also pulled her skirt and smiled innocently. But the invisible momentum suppressed her, and she didn't dare to say no. But weren't you afraid of bad guys at the beginning? Why are you so scared now? She asked cautiously. Oh, that was at the beginning. Anyone who saw the scene and the two gods at the door would be afraid of June. But a few days passed and nothing happened, so everyone felt more at ease. Plus those handsome guys, everyone didn't care about it anymore. Don't ask too much. Will you help me? Just one sentence. The person who spoke was her colleague at the nurse station. She was small and sweet, but Yoojun didn't expect that such a cute little nurse would threaten people in the same way as a little gangster. Even threatening was done. Did she have the right to say no? I will help, but I can't guarantee that the people inside will cooperate. She bowed her head in a cowardly manner. It doesn't matter. As long as there is a glimmer of hope, we will never give up. Amid the cheers of the crowd, Yujun realized only one thing. Taiwanese people are really fanatical. Even hospitals for birth and death can have long queues. Is this a Taiwanese miracle? Took a full 90 minutes for Yujun to find her treatment card again. She couldn't believe that those women had delayed her youth for an hour and a half for such a blind and stupid thing, and unreasonably broke up her original plan to drink afternoon tea leisurely. She clenched her fist unwillingly, and even the note in her palm was crumpled up. She disdainfully threw the paper ball and the digital camera into the drawer of the treatment cart and walked towards the source of all evil angrily. Pushing open the heavy door, it was not surprising that there was silence inside. She had already figured out their habits clearly in the past few days. Those noisy Sualua would not go back to the hospital to act wild unless they were full and had a good nap. But this made her wonder again. Didn't they stand guard at the door because they were worried about the safety of Boss Chi? Why would they let him be alone at a fixed time now? She pushed the cart lightly into the inner room and was used to seeing the broad back by the window. Ever since Chi Yanxi could get out of bed, he would always sit by the window in the afternoon, quietly flipping through a book in his hand. If she hadn't known him well, she would have thought that the person sitting there was an excellent white-collar elite. Look at him now. The setting sun in the afternoon hits his face, and the light and shadows depict a deep outline. Although he is not handsome, his heroic and vigorous kingly demeanor is comfortable to look at. No wonder most of the mature women over 23 years old outside are his fans. Noticing her gaze, Yanxi raised his head slightly and looked at her. After nodding and greeting, he lay back on the bed very cooperatively to facilitate Yujun to change the medicine. He has been so taciturn these days. If he hadn't said thank you after changing the medicine, she might have thought he was actually a mute. It started silently as well. She could finish her work as usual, and then push the cart away without saying a word. But today is different. She has been bombarded by crazy fans for half an afternoon for them. She will be unhappy if she doesn't get justice at 4 o'clock. Do you know that you are very popular? She stood at the end of the bed and took notes, and she got straight to the point. Yanxi glanced at her when she heard it. Thank you. He used 2 words to perfunctorily pass it over, and his eyes quickly turned back to the lines of the book. That's it. Yujun couldn't accept it and threw down the pad in her hand and rushed to the head of the bed, crossed her hands and got angry. Don't think I'm being polite to you. I don't have time to say polite words to get closer to the patient. What I just said is the fact, a fact that has troubled me for an afternoon. She said it in a rush and hasty manner. Yanxi was so angry that he had to focus his eyes on the angry nurse in front of him. He sat up and asked politely, "What reaction do you want me to have? You can happily ask me for details next, or say disdainfully that you don't care about other people's favor. But you shouldn't be so indifferent and take it lightly." She took a breath and continued to vent her pent-up resentment. You are just a patient with a 20-centimeter cut on your left hand, a broken right wrist bone, multiple bruises on your body, and suspected concussion in hospital. There are still people who admire you. Don't you think it's strange and don't want to know the reason? Obviously, he is a bandit leader who was injured in a fight. How can he attract so many people? Is this important? He asked calmly. It's very important to me. I must know what charm you have that can make those crazy women outside the door nag in my ears for an afternoon. Yujun said indignantly. Her emotional look made it difficult for people not to pay attention. She looked at her steadily, with a subtle angle at the corner of his mouth. This nurse is indeed unusual. I'm sorry. I don't know how to answer this question. He smiled slightly with his lips pursed, apologizing. This smile stunned Yujun. She suppressed her anger and looked back at him in surprise. Hey, are you really the leader of that group of men? In a blink of an eye, she changed the topic to something unrelated. Her rapid change of train of thought made Yanxi slow to react. In some ways, I am. His admission calmed Yujun down, staring at him with wide eyes. The more he looked at him, the less he looked like a gangster boss. Which big brother would be so polite and not overbearing? He only looked like a boss in appearance, but his other actions were like a gentle and civilized person. Isn't this kind of big brother too weird? Is it because of such contradictions that he has created his unique flavor and made those stupid women addicted? Or are they not bad guys at all and she misunderstood? Her head began to ache slightly, and she was impulsive and was not used to thinking too deeply. It was important to solve the problem at hand first. Do you know how popular you are? Do you know that there is a long line of people standing at your door? In less than 3 minutes, she brought the topic back. Gradually adapting to her fickleness, Yenshi smiled calmly. I have heard Muping mention it before. In that case, I don't need to waste my breath anymore. Yujun nodded with satisfaction, turned around and took out the camera and paper ball from the drawer, flattened the paper ball and read the data on it. According to statistics, the second in command has about 60% of admirers, ranging from 5 to 50 years old. The young man Kamuping has 18%, which is a killer of housewives over 30 years old. And you are slightly better than the young men, accounting for 21%. Most of the people who like you are mature and independent urban women, of course, excluding me. The remaining 1% are votes from your other muscular men, which can be ignored. After reading the information on the note, Yujun waited for his response. Thank you. It was very disappointing, this sentence again. Yujun forced herself to take a deep breath, swallowed her temper, and said with a sweet smile, I read so much, not to ask for your gratitude, but to let you understand the facts. And that fact is, these women are crazy. They worship you so much that they ask me to help collect photos. She raised the camera in her hand and asked him to get into the situation. So, he smiled calmly. Yujun couldn't stand it anymore. Put down the things heavily, pointed at his nose and growled. Don't you understand yet? That group of people is terrible. They are not pure teenage girls chasing stars, but a group of women who have experienced society. How direct and lethal their methods will be, you can't just smile and stop them. Don't you feel scared? After floating hard, she stopped to breathe, and she realized what she had done after oxygen was infused into her brain. Are you caring about me? Yenshi's steady voice came into her ears, and she shuddered immediately. God, she actually said bad things about her sisters like this. Even if it was true, she shouldn't say it in front of the people involved. Would he still agree to let her take pictures to get the job done? What if she couldn't get the job done? How would those crazy women torture her? Yenshi calmly noticed her suddenly blue cheeks and said politely, Thank you. I don't want your thanks. I want your pictures. Nod. And promise me to take a few pictures to get the job done. She excitedly held his hand, as hard as the sisters had held hers, intending to convey their love, and her eyes were filled with her own sincere request. This matter is not something I can decide alone. Yenshi skillfully withdrew his hand, without disturbing the calmness on his face. Yujun shrank back hesitantly. That's true. If we only bring back yours, the other two groups will only get more angry, and I will be killed. Suddenly she smiled very flatteringly, hoping that this big brother would be kind in addition to being civilized. But, will you help me get photos of other people? Please give her a nod and let her get out of the sea of flowers. Otherwise, if it happens again, she will definitely be drowned in their saliva. I'm sorry, we don't like taking pictures. Yenshi smiled and refused, not to cause trouble for herself. It was a bolt from the blue for Yujun. When she thought of the tragic tomorrow of the mission failure, the embankment in her heart finally collapsed. Who cares about your apology? I want you to be responsible. Responsible, do you understand? You must give me a reasonable explanation, otherwise I can't live. She stood on the chair angrily and yelled at him condescendingly. If she didn't do this, she would probably be so angry that she vomited blood. Oh, I heard it, big brother. What did you do to the nurse that you need to be held accountable for? Mu Ping was sly when she heard such a powerful statement as soon as she entered the room. Yen Shiwen was unmoved, and just a slight glance at him made Mu Ping calm down, not daring to act rashly, and the big brother's courage was self-evident. Turning back with the same temperament, he said to Yujun gently, Miss Liu, everyone is here now. If you have any problems, let's solve them together. What? What did you say? Yujun was still immersed in his amazing face-changing skills, and she opened her mouth in a daze. I think Big Brother means that you should tell me what happened just now again. How Tion's ghostly voice came from the corner, and she jumped off the chair immediately and looked around nervously. If she had any dissatisfaction with their group, the thing that displeased her most was this second-in-command who was so handsome that he was as good as hell. What she hated most in her life was this kind of guy who was so good-looking that he was insidious and cold. In Hao Yin is the epitome of everything. She feels uncomfortable when he is around. Humph, I know what to do without you telling me. Yujun glared at Hao Yin without appreciation. It's all because of your face. People say that beauty is a disaster, but good-looking men can bring disaster to the country and the people. Look at those sisters outside who have delayed their work and abandoned their families for you. Don't you think you should show some appreciation? What do they want to do? Mu Ping asked curiously. He really wanted to know what other tricks those crazy girls had come up with besides following the prison. It's very simple. They will be satisfied with just a few photos of you. Yujun stated the ultimate goal. What do you want photos for? I don't want my photos to be covered with the saliva of strange women for no reason. Mu Ping said arrogantly, which made Yujun so angry that she jumped on the chair. What are you bragging about? You are just the last one, the first and second place didn't say anything. Why are you so proud? Hey, what I said is the truth. If you don't believe me, ask my brother. Then everyone's attention was focused on the man reading leisurely on the bed. You are still in the mood to read? Aren't you going to help me solve the problem? It's about my life and death. You are so relaxed. Is there any justice? Yujun roared unbearably. Too exaggerated? Mu Ping curled his lips in disapproval. Shut up. There is no place for minions to talk here. Yujun roared back with amazing momentum. You! Mu Ping. She blocked Mu Ping's anger that was about to erupt with a look. He said politely, Miss Liu, since the parties are present, you might as well ask them in person. As for me, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I won't do it either. I'm not an artist or a clown in a circus. Why would I send photos to people to curse them? I won't do such stupid things. Mu Ping glared at her and refused maliciously. I hate taking pictures. Hao Yan, who was making tea by the window, said coldly. The three of them embarrassed her one after another, and Yujun gritted her teeth and endured it. If she didn't do it, she might be so angry that she would set the house on fire. For the sake of other innocent people, she was very hard to hold back. Since you don't want to, I can't force it, but I can't guarantee that the sisters who can't comfort their hearts with photos will use other means. By then, I can't stop it. She threatened sinisterly. After returning, she must incite the group of crazy fans and make them run wild. She lowered her head and smiled secretly. While changing Yenshi's dressing vigorously, she imagined the scene of them being annoyed to the point of going crazy. It was the same October. The day before yesterday was a sunny autumn day. Today, the wind blew for no reason. The sky was dark, accompanied by the dead leaves rolled up on the ground. This scene was so desolate. But no matter how bleak it was not as miserable as the nurse pushing the cart in the hospital. Yujun stepped into the door tremblingly, and only wiped the cold sweat from her forehead with peace of mind after making sure that the door of the ward was completely closed. When she raised her head again, she was already angry. She approached the man by the window without saying a word, deliberately letting him notice her arrival, but ignored his greeting and kept busy in the room. Yenshi, who was lying back on the bed, watched her turning around the bed with interest, but refused to come over to change his dressing. Just thinking about his broken wrist, he knew that something was wrong. Are you in a bad mood? He asked kindly, his attitude more polite than curious. Yujun ignored him and continued to measure her blood pressure for the third time since she entered the room. Yenshi smiled indifferently, turned the book, and let her abuse the blood vessels on his arm. Suddenly, the room fell into a dead silence, so quiet that even the sound of the blood pressure monitor inflating could be heard clearly. Yujun's face was fixed on the blood pressure monitor, but her eyes rolled straight towards him, and the little patience she had left was gone with the mercury column. Finally, she couldn't help but pull away the stethoscope and glared at him fiercely. Hey, why don't you continue asking? She shouted at him unhappily. Yenshi calmly put down the book and smiled kindly. You don't want to talk, right? Who told you I don't want to talk? Can you please not be so polite? Okay? Sometimes no response does not mean that the victim is unwilling to talk, but that she needs more motivation to induce her to explode. Do you understand? This is the gossip principle of the 3 stations and 6 women. As long as the audience wants to know more, they will talk more vigorously. Yujun put his hands on his waist and looked like a teacher giving a lecture. Yenshi nodded in admonition. Is that what you want to say? Who told you that the key point is this nonsense? Every time she saw him not getting into the situation, she would be furious. Who caused her to end up in such a situation? How could he stay out of it with a smile? Do I have anything else to do with you? She took a deep breath to calm herself down. Since he pretended to be ignorant and refused to admit it, she had to save her strength to slowly consume him. Isn't it just changing the medicine and changing the drip? He was still steady and impeccable. You! Until today, June finally understood what the so-called natural enemy was. It turned out that there were people who were completely incompatible with her. She thought that she could get along with anyone with her cheerful and outgoing personality. But Yenshi came and overturned her record of good popularity. After a few days of getting along, she found that they were always talking at cross purposes. She was always angry and screaming, while he was leisurely enjoying the cool air beside her. Such a gap. So many grievances. They will definitely not be friends in this life. Did I warn you not to annoy the nurse who takes care of you? She squeezed out an unusually gentle voice from between her teeth. Yenshi's thick black eyebrows raised slightly. Thank you for your advice. I will pay attention next time. No, next time. I want you to listen carefully to every word I say now. She yelled in anger. If she didn't yell, she would be suffocated to the point of internal injury, causing shock and sending her to the emergency room. My ears are not injured. You can speak at a normal volume. He was not affected by her temper and remained as magnanimous as usual. Of course I know you are very good, because I am the one who is unlucky, she said indignantly. Thank you for your hard work. He expressed his gratitude. June immediately raised her eyes and glared at him, and her eyes were unprecedentedly resentful and cruel. Are you serious about what you said just now? Or are you joking with me? I don't think it's funny, Yenshi answered seriously. Oh my God. Oh my God. You are still not in the situation. June held his head and resisted the urge to hit the wall. It's time now. How can he still be so polite? Even if it's a joke, at least it means that he still knows what she is talking about. She doesn't want him to be so polite anymore. Isn't he a gangster boss? Is there any boss like him? A silly goose? Do you remember what happened the day before yesterday? You're not naive enough to think that I would change the dressing for the patient with a bitter face. She didn't want to beat around the bush with him. If she continued to beat around the bush, she would either die of a cerebral hemorrhage or report directly to the psychiatric department. It would drive me crazy. Only the group of sisters outside could do it together. She sat weakly on the sofa and kept rubbing her temples. The tragedy she expected did not affect Wei Yenshi and the others, but instead came true one by one on her. There were more and more people ambushing in the corridor these 2 days, and they were no longer limited to women. Even their comrades could not resist their charm. With these two major forces joining forces, her life was getting harder and harder. But strangely, the group of people in the room were not disturbed and continued to live their leisurely lives every day. This was the most unbalanced thing for her. I want to ask, what method did you use to escape unscathed and pass through the corridor safely without being disemboweled by the crazy admirer? She didn't understand. She was just an innocent little nurse. She would be pointed at and even resented when she walked on the street. Why didn't the person involved have any trouble at all? Judging from the degree of madness of the group of people outside, they couldn't easily let the target go through the corridor without making a sound. Nor should they try to attack here and catch them all in one fell swoop. You should ask Hao Yen or Muping about this question. They are very good at dealing with such things. Yenshi kindly suggested. Aren't you their eldest brother? How come you don't know anything? She asked dissatisfiedly. She just hated the way he didn't know anything, but couldn't make people lose their temper. They have always been responsible for public relations. Then what are you responsible for? She wanted to know what big things this eldest brother was busy with. I am mainly responsible for decision-making and participating in design, Yenshi said lightly, making it impossible to tell whether there was any other meaning in his words. June walked to the bedside in confusion and asked while changing the dressing, what do you need to design in this business? What do you need to make decisions? Aren't you just a bunch of guys with muscles but no brains? She didn't know what civilized business methods the fighting and killing underworld needed. Really? He didn't comment, and quietly watched her hands moving around on his body. Unable to bear such silence and the embarrassment of being stared at by him, June tried to find a topic to fill the gap. I still don't understand what you do. Why does everyone look so stylish and have a special temperament? It doesn't look like you are in an idol group. Who said we are entertainers who sell smiles on TV? Don't insult people. Before June finished speaking, Muping's unhappy loud voice rushed in, and his smiling baby face was hanging with disdainful squinting eyes. Why are you glaring at them? Can't you look at the group of admirers outside? What's the difference between that and star chasing? Is it wrong to say that you are idols? June glared back unhappily, and the needle in his hand pierced Yenshi's arm unceremoniously. who told his minions to provoke her. As the boss, he should be responsible. The angry Yen, she did not say anything, but just glanced at her lightly. But this glance easily aroused her guilt. She bit her lip and said muffledly, "I'm sorry." The wiping action of her hand unconsciously softened. Looking at her lowered head, Yen, she smiled lightly. A soft ambiguity floated into the bleak autumn. But there were people who didn't know what to do and rudely broke up the rare peace. "Hey, hey, hey, which you'd better not do anything to my big brother. If anything happens to him, I'll be the first to take action against you." Seeing that she was a little hesitant, Mu Ping immediately rushed forward and grabbed her wrist. "Mu Ping!" Yen, she shouted in a deep voice, and a look made him let go obediently. "But big brother." Mu Ping was yelled at and he was very unwilling. He wanted to complain, but was glared at by Yen Shi and was silenced. In the end, he could only touch his nose and hide in the corner. Watching them go back and forth, Yu Jun once again saw the spirit of the so-called big brother. "So you are not a fake boss." Now she looked at him with a little more understanding, but her attitude still lacked the awe she should have. "Is there a problem?" Yen Shi raised his eyebrows and looked at her, who suddenly realized. He began to be interested in the reaction of this strange nurse. "It's quite realistic. It turns out that you are not a puppet lying in bed and unable to get into the situation, but a real big brother," she muttered to herself, slowly digesting this discovery. Seeing her shaking her head in thought, Yen Shi's interest deepened. "Big brother." A chilling voice suddenly interrupted, and the temperature in the room dropped by 10 degrees. Yen Shi turned his head calmly and saw the tall figure by the door as expected, while the other two were scared by Yin Haoyan, who was elusive. "Second in command. When did you come? Why didn't you notify me?" Mu Ping smiled stiffly and asked politely, because he didn't want to know the answer at all. "I've been following you," Haoyan said coldly. Is that so?" Mu Ping's face became even stiffer. He shouldn't ask, because the answer always makes him more scared. They could never guess what the second in command was thinking under his perfect appearance, and they could never figure out his whereabouts. Such an unfathomable person was the most frightening. "Where did you come from?" Yu Jun put down his work and looked west in surprise, actively looking for the secret passage where Haoyan suddenly appeared. The remaining Yen, she was the only one who could think normally at the scene. "Is there anything?" "I'm here to report on the progress of Brother Yong." Haoyan took out a stack of documents in a businesslike manner. "Have you inspected the goods ordered from Italy?" Yenshi asked as he flipped through them. "I have checked them. The quality this time is better than last time and meets our requirements." Haoyan responded calmly. "What do you think of Brother Yong's products?" Putting down the documents in his hand, Yenshi asked his companions for their opinions. "Their raw materials are pure and taste good. They should sell well." The eldest brother pondered for a while and asked the last question. "Are you sure you can do a good job in this business?" "We are fully prepared. There will be no problem," Haoyan assured confidently. "Well, I think so too. You have worked hard during this period. It is because of the eldest brother's good plan that things will go so smoothly." The two handled their business very efficiently, but Yu Jun, who was wandering on the side, seemed to be struck by lightning. He immediately straightened his back and looked at them with wide eyes. What are they talking about? What ordered goods? What products? What concentration is pure? What kind of business can these gangsters do? They must be planning to smuggle drugs. How can they talk about such things here so brazenly? And she heard it. How can she forgive their evil deeds and arrogance? How can you do such a thing? Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning? She rushed to the bedside and questioned Yenshi. Yenshi put away the information on the bedsheet and met her stare in confusion. "What kind of thing?" he asked gracefully. Yu Jun waved his hand away impatiently. "You are still asking me? Don't you dare to take responsibility for what you did? Do you want to play dumb and get away with it after being discovered? What exactly are you referring to?" Yenshi responded calmly, not affected by her insults. "Don't pretend. I have seen through it, and no matter how you cover it up, it will not help." Yu Jun was so angry that his mind went blank, and he felt a kind of pain of being deceived. How can they deceive the world with beautiful appearance and elegant conversation? On the surface, he pretended to be very decent, but in private, he was doing such dirty things. Even she was almost fooled by this big brother. She kept staring at Yenshi, with a hint of disappointment in her eyes besides disgust. "I originally thought you were a good person, but I didn't expect you to do such a thing. It's too much. Yujun, who was speechless, finally roared a few times and rushed out of the door with great fire. She was afraid that if she stayed any longer, she might lose control and kill people with a syringe. The men in the room looked at the smoke and dust she rolled up and looked at each other in confusion. Can anyone explain what happened just now? Yanxi asked the brothers for their opinions. It's a misunderstanding, Hao Yin said lightly, and his narrow and beautiful eyes turned. Brother, what did you do to others that would be misunderstood? Mu Ping sneered in an improper way. What do you think? Yanxi glanced at him coldly, and the warning was self-evident. Seeing this, Mu Ping hurriedly put on a smile. I was just joking just now. How could our solemn eldest brother do anything to that witch? Any problem must be the witch's fault. Yanxi ignored him, frowned, and his resolute face fell into deep thought. Bored Mu Ping continued to talk. But judging from the force she used to rush out of the door, her dissatisfaction with us must have reached its peak. We can't be careless. Big brother, I'm not being nosy. I think we can't tolerate it anymore. That witch is very fierce, and she doesn't like us. God knows if she will secretly drug you to harm you, so let's send someone to sit at the door. With more people watching, she won't dare to be too arrogant. You think too much. Yanxi threw down a sentence, pulled the pile of books at the head of the bed, and flipped through them casually. Seeing that the eldest brother didn't take it seriously, Mu Ping sought the support of the smartest person inside. Second brother, you must understand my painstaking efforts. Please help me persuade my eldest brother. I really don't want to see my eldest brother make any mistakes again. Hao Yin shook his head to indicate that it was unnecessary, and walked closer to the bed and said to Yanxi, according to the current situation, she will never come back to change the dressing for you. Do you need my help? Hearing this, Yanxi immediately closed the book and tilted his head to look at him. Hao Yin waited seriously, and Yanxi did not miss the flash of light in his eyes. He knew very well that if he let his sworn brother in front of him take action, his wound might be delayed for a week to heal. Compared to the inexplicable anger of Yujun before, the kindness of the second in command was 10 times more dangerous. Because there was no kind cell in Hao Yin's body. Even if the target was injured, Hao Yin could still do bad things without mercy. No matter how strong his body was, he didn't want to suffer this unnecessary pain. No, let Mu Ping come. He looked back firmly, clearly conveying his defense against him. Hao Yin nodded in understanding and handed the things to Mu Ping, who took them immediately without daring to neglect them. Of course, he also knew the quirks of the second in command. Hao Yin was a nearly perfect person. Apart from his bad intentions, he was simply a masterpiece of God. But his bad habit of always wanting to frame people made him fall from an angel to a devil. Even those close to him had to be on guard 24 hours a day to avoid being messed around by him. The most amazing thing was that he always hurt people invisibly, waving his sleeves without dirtying his hands, and the lines of his face were never distorted. When Hao Yin packed up the documents and prepared to leave, he suddenly said, Brother, can't you figure out the strange behavior of the nurse? She probably hates me, Yanxi said calmly. Not just you. She hates the way we are now. Hao Yin left with a meaningful message. Hearing this, Yanxi pursed his lips, and his dark eyes turned with light. Mu Ping, who was busy applying medicine, could not understand their deep conversation, and had only one question. Brother, is the second in command trying to frame someone again? Do you know who the target is? He sincerely hoped that the unlucky person was not him. You think too much. Yanxi used the same words to stop his long tongue, and suddenly the thin but stubborn figure floated in his mind, making him fall into deeper thinking. After slamming the door and leaving, Yujun did not rush back to the nursing station, but walked towards the stairwell in a daze. There was a heavy feeling in her heart that made her unable to get angry, and she couldn't think, just feeling that something was wrong. You skipped work just a few days after reporting. You are too arrogant as a nurse. Yujun heard a familiar voice before she finished walking up the stairs of one floor. She looked up, and her full of surprise made her blank expression even more stupid. Zhuoling, why are you here? She looked at her long-lost friend stupidly and answered, Oh. I came to attend the conference with the professor. I was bored, so I came to see W. Zhuoling was still the same, with a confident and sly smile. Compared with her friend's dazzling brilliance, her experience seemed miserable. After less than a minute of happiness, Yujun flattened her eyelids and said depressedly, You came just in time. Let's go have afternoon tea to relax. She took Zhuoling's hand and walked out, without considering the reality at all. You haven't finished get off work yet. Isn't it bad to skip work so blatantly? Zhuoling stopped her steps and pointed at the head nurse who led her to the stairs, and other spectators who were joining in the fun. Yujun only thought of work at this time, turned her head, and shouted upstairs, "Can I leave early today?" She pursed her lips and waited for her boss's approval. Her expression was extremely persistent. The head nurse looked at her, then at the door behind her that was almost broken by the earthquake. She had to nod her head for both reason and emotion. Otherwise, if she was left as an unexploded bomb, who knows what kind of sparks would be created with that group of special elements. For the peace of the hospital, the head nurse smiled considerately. It's rare for a friend to come to see you. It's only right to go out and reminisce. Go ahead. I won't count you as absent from work. Thank you. Yujun thanked him hard and pulled Zhuoling away again. Zhuoling, who was dragged, couldn't help but wonder in his heart, and looked back at the head nurse's frightened face. The head nurse of your hospital is not bad. She actually allowed you to skip work, but her face was too pale, wasn't it? Did your true face scare everyone? So they let you do whatever you want. Zhuoling couldn't understand the strange interaction between them. Huh, it's all thanks to that group of people, Yujun said without turning his head. His expression was terribly serious. Now the women in the hospital are divided into two groups. One is the dream group that worships the gangsters, the other is the realistic group that fears them, and the head nurse belongs to the latter, always tremblingly reminding her to take good care of them, just asking them to leave as soon as possible and not to cause trouble. Now she slammed the door with an ugly face, and the neurotic head nurse certainly didn't need to keep her to continue to conflict with the patients. Who offended you? Zhuoling asked curiously. Yujun pulled the corners of his mouth stiffly, and was reluctant to mention that group of people. The patient I am responsible for now is a gangster. Gangster? Zhuoling's eyes lit up, and he immediately stopped Yujun's progress and asked excitedly, "How does he look?" You know, I am very curious about all kinds of people, and I am a standard sensory animal. If they look sorry, we will just treat it as a setup, and you don't mention it. Zhuoling has a strong spirit of research on new things, but the premise is that they must be pleasing to the eye. Especially people, if she doesn't like them, even if they are rare aliens in 1,000 years and come to her and ask her to take another look, she won't wrong herself. Yujun wanted to pretend that she had never mentioned this matter, but she didn't want to lie, and now she was in need of someone to vent her grievances, so she had to force herself to squeeze out the sound from her teeth. They look good. What is the standard of good? Is this gangster movie Hollywood or a local drama? Zhuoling didn't quite believe in Yujun's vision and doubted her aesthetic standards. It's the level of independent productions in Europe, Yujun answered painfully. The temperament of their group is not like American movies with strong fighting colors, nor does it have a vulgar local flavor. It is more like the low-key gangster gangs in Europe. Oh my God, is it like a cold mafia? I must go and see it. Zhuoling's curiosity was completely aroused, and he wanted to rush over excitedly. Yujun pulled back her collar as prepared, and said with disdain, "They are a bunch of rotten people. How could it be?" Zhuoling was shocked by the disgust in her eyes and stopped in confusion. Yujun did not explain much and led her into the coffee shop. After drinking a cup of tea to calm her mind, she told her about the past few days. "I believe them." After listening, Zhuoling said firmly, "Ahem, what do you believe? You haven't even seen them. Why do you believe them?" Hearing Zhuoling's conclusion, Yujun almost laughed and patted her chest to calm down. "They are gangsters, bad guys who do dirty things. Why do you support such people? Is your brain broken? Or did I hear it wrong?" Zhuoling ignored her suspicious eyes and said objectively, "Do you think gangsters will casually discuss drug transactions in front of strangers? You are a sensory animal, and your specialty is to forget friends when you see beauty. Don't favor the second boss just because he is your favorite type. There is no need to defend them anymore." Yujun denied Zhuoling's words. Now she can't listen to any good words about them. Yujun's loud voice made them the focus of the store, but the two parties didn't care. They still drank tea and stared. "I don't even know whether they are round or flat. How can I be confused by beauty?" After taking a sip of tea, Zhuoling mockingly used her previous words to counter. Yujun raised her eyebrows and said bluntly, "Don't talk nonsense to me. Why do you prefer to trust strangers, but have no confidence in your old friends?" "Because it's true. Are you sure that their so-called business is drug trafficking? Have you pointed at their noses and asked them directly?" Zhuoling shook her head knowingly, knowing very well the old mistakes that Yujun would make. Zhuoling's words calmed her down temporarily. I do not have evidence to prove their crimes, but you can't completely overturn this possibility. Yujun could not refute or be convinced. Zhuoling glanced at her and said mysteriously, That's why I advise you to calm down. Impulsiveness will not work. If you don't change your reckless personality, something will go wrong one day. Although her words were harsh, Yujun had to admit that this good friend really understood her. But she couldn't admit defeat for the sake of face, and she still argued stubbornly. What do you mean? Zhuoling sighed helplessly. See, this is the attitude. One day you will be killed by your own impatient and arbitrary personality. After moistening her lips with gukka tea, she continued, Do you know what kind of people are the easiest to control? Let me tell you, it's single-celled organisms like you with a locomotive personality. As long as you are slightly provoked, you will be excited and scream, rushing around in a headlong rush, and in the end it is obviously your own fault, but you still blame others for deceiving you. Zhuoling's words were very mysterious, and Yujun couldn't hear it clearly. Seeing her confused face, Zhuoling sighed heavily again. You are stupid and you don't admit it. I have said it so clearly, but you still don't understand? Okay, I will lower the standard and use simple words. I say you are not young anymore, and you should learn to think with your brain and don't always judge with emotions. If you continue to be so naive, I am worried that you will even sell yourself out of confusion in the important matter of marriage. Maybe you will lose yourself out of anger. Zhuoling felt more and more that this was possible. I'm not stupid enough to joke about life, Yujun yelled in dissatisfaction. But I will be impulsive and lose my mind. Zhuoling said coldly, showing an expression of, See, that's it. Yujun was so angry that she was speechless. Every time she quarreled with Zhuoling, she was always defeated by Zhuoling, who was full of nonsense. You talked so much but still didn't get to the point. Why do you put all the blame on me? Not wanting Zhuoling to continue attacking her, she would rather discuss the hypocritical guys in the hospital. Please be kind enough to teach me how to use this rusty brain. Leaning back in the chair, Yujun said humbly and deliberately, not caring about her unkind attitude. Zhuoling moistened his throat and said slowly, The main reason I just said, if they are really criminals who commit crimes, would they talk about this kind of thing so openly? Next, you said that Brother Chi likes reading books very much. What does this have to do with it? Yujun couldn't keep up with her jumping thoughts and frowned in confusion. Just a moment ago, she was analyzing the matter seriously, but she suddenly changed the subject and turned to such a trivial matter? It's very important. Tell me what kind of books he reads. Zhuoling picked up the teacup and raised the corner of her mouth profoundly. Yujun didn't understand what she was thinking, but she tried to recall. Well, he put a bunch of books on the bedside table, including hardcovers and magazines, both in Chinese and English. I took a rough look at the titles, most of which were related to business operations or corporate transformation. Every time I changed the medicine, I saw him holding a book, and I don't know if he read it into his brain. At the end, she couldn't help but sarcastically said, although Qi Yanqi looked very serious when reading, she just didn't want to admit that gangsters could also be knowledgeable. That's right. Zhuoling nodded with satisfaction, with a gleam of admiration in her eyes. Since they are trying to whitewash their legitimate business, why don't you think that their products are just simple goods? You are still protecting them after all, and you have no evidence to prove that what you said is true. Yujun frowned unhappily. Even if Zhuoling was right, she just couldn't swallow the resentment of being completely denied. Then let's go and ask them right away. I am looking forward to meeting them and seeing the so-called underworld. Zhuoling couldn't wait to stand up from the chair and hold Yujun's hand, looking ready to go. Yujun pushed her hand away indifferently and turned her head away coldly. You are embarrassed to face them, right? No wonder, you are so angry at them for no reason. Of course you are too embarrassed to face them, Zhuoling said coldly after being poured cold water by Yujun. Humph. Not wanting to argue, Yujun sneered and stopped talking. Now she has to think about how to explain this chaos tomorrow. Brother, I have already assigned the staff. From now on, we don't have to endure the anger of that domineering nurse anymore. Kumuping's excited voice floated from the door to the bed, followed by two big guys, a Long and a Hu. The expressions on the faces of the three people were all the same. But this passionate emotion was swept by the pair of black eyes by the window, and the momentum was immediately weakened. Be quiet in the hospital. Turning his eyes back from the window, Yen, she warned in a low voice. Brother, don't be afraid. I have made all the preparations. You don't need to worry about anything anymore. Mu Ping smiled proudly, intoxicated by his own cleverness. He didn't believe that the witch dared to speak loudly to them. What did you do? Ignoring Mu Ping's pride, Yen, she flipped the book in his hand and asked casually. Mu Ping was a little hurt by the boss's nonchalant attitude, but it couldn't stop his high spirits. He dared to guarantee that the eldest brother would be satisfied with such an arrangement. I dispatched some people to ambush around the hospital gate and the wards, and ordered a Long and a Hu to take charge, so that we don't have to worry about the witch's arrogance. If she makes a little move, the brothers will definitely have a good discussion with her. Hihi.
Mu Ping laughed bloodthirstily.
Since Yujun appeared, their actions have become tied up. If they don't take the opportunity to show off their power now, won't they be completely looked down upon by her? His eyes lingering between the words glanced at his three subordinates, and Yen, she said calmly, no need. Why not? Mu Ping protested in dissatisfaction, and Long Hu Ursha beside him also disagreed. Brother, can't you see her hostility towards us? Yesterday she could point at your nose and curse for no reason, and even slammed the door and left rudely. God knows what terrible things that hysterical woman will do. We have to be on guard too, Mu Ping said earnestly. He didn't understand why the eldest brother and the second in command always didn't take his advice seriously. Anyone with eyes can see how unhappy the new nurse is with them, and even a blind person can hear her unkind words to them with his ears. The facts are so obvious. How can the eldest brother be so calm? She has no ill intentions. Unaffected by the emotions of others, Yen He said calmly. Humph, she didn't mean any harm by yelling like that? Big brother, you are really magnanimous.
Mu Ping sneered disdainfully.
In his entire life, he had never seen anyone's goodwill be so sharp and piercing. She won't hurt anyone. Noticing his subordinate's dissatisfaction, Yen Shi's focused gaze finally shifted to his brother beside the bed. Why are you so confident in her? Have you forgotten how bad her attitude was yesterday? Mu Ping advised without giving up, his handsome face full of anxiety. He absolutely couldn't let his big brother take risks. This is a misunderstanding. I will explain it to her clearly. Yen Shi gave them a restrained smile, but he couldn't calm the brother's impatient mood. She has such a fierce personality. She is not someone who can communicate. This won't work. Mu Ping insisted on opposing to the end. A Long and a Hu, who had eaten the first place of Yujun, also nodded vigorously behind his back. Do you doubt my ability? Yen Shi asked lightly, blocking Mu Ping again. Big brother, you know I don't mean that. It's already been decided. Let me talk to her first. If it doesn't work, we can think of other ways. The boss gave an order, and the subordinates had no room to object. Mu Ping still had concerns. Otherwise, at least let us stay with you tonight. Today she is on the night shift, and it is also the best time to do evil. We can't rest assured. Do I need someone to take care of me so much? Yen Shi replied in a low voice. The voice was not loud and there was no anger, but the lethality of it embarrassed the subordinates. But, okay, I know. Mu Ping stopped dejectedly. Continuing to talk would only make them more frustrated. The three big men touched their noses and retreated automatically. They prayed in their hearts that nothing would happen to their beloved big brother tonight. The autumn night is really cool like water, and with the yellow crescent moon, the whole night sky is more vast. The west wind blew the shadows of the trees in the sky garden, and the freehand scenery made people forget the hustle and bustle of the day. At 2:30 in the morning, Yujun had no mood to sing and sing. She squatted at the entrance of the garden with her chin propped up, silently looking at the people inside. In the middle of the yard stood a tall figure, sometimes looking up at the sky, sometimes looking down in thought. His quiet posture was like a long-standing stone statue, harmoniously blending into the surrounding environment, so peaceful that Yujun felt more and more strange. She was just passing by here after going to the toilet, and a casual glance made her find Qi Yanqi wandering here. Based on her duty to take care of him, she stopped at the door, but ended up stopping for an hour, so tired that she simply squatted on the ground to waste time with him. Yanqi at the other end of the yard took a deep breath and was ready to go back to his room to rest. When he looked away, he unexpectedly found her squatting in the shadows. He slowly approached, stopped in front of her, and asked condescendingly, "Is there anything?" Yujun didn't say anything, staring at him steadily. The cool breeze blew over the two people's gaze, giving her goosebumps all over her body and an unnatural feeling of suffocation in her heart. She didn't have time to study the strange emotional reaction. She had other things to deal with him first. She stood up, patted the dust on her body, and said casually, "It's so late. You still have the interest to appreciate the moon? I just can't sleep." "Yen," she said with a smile. "Very good. Since you have time and I am free, let's talk." Yujun found a wooden chair nearby and sat down, patting the seat next to him to signal him to come over. Yen Hei's eyes turned, a little surprised by her behavior. Seeing that he was a little hesitant, Yujun urged impatiently, "What are you afraid of? I won't eat you." Her expression made him lean over with a smile. The style of this nurse is really unpredictable. Yesterday she scolded him to the point of no return. But now she wants him to sit next to her? Is she too fickle? Or does he not understand the style of modern women? Seeing him sitting down obediently and keeping a polite, safe distance, Yujun nodded with satisfaction and decided to find a topic to start with, and then slowly get into the subject. "It's really strange. Your minions actually let you be alone. Aren't they standing guard? Aren't they afraid that I will take advantage of the midnight shift to attack you?" "You won't," he said simply, and his eyes were full of affirmation. She actually felt embarrassed for his trust. In order to eliminate the embarrassment, she deliberately said in a rough voice, "I treated you like that yesterday, and you didn't care. Aren't you worried? That was a misunderstanding." His words were still brief, and his eyes were so bright that she couldn't resist. Yujun couldn't help but close her eyes. If she continued to look at him, she would definitely be annoyed by the weird feeling in her heart. She took a deep breath and opened her eyes, focusing on the pool in front of her as much as possible, trying to ignore his sight. "I apologize for that incident. I overreacted." She finally said the conclusion she had thought about for a day and a night. After talking to Zhuoling, she reflected thoroughly. No matter what the facts were, her actions yesterday were indeed too exaggerated. Not only were they scratched for no reason, but they also disturbed the peace of the entire floor. For this, she had already confessed to the head nurse, and the only thing left was to apologize to him. "It's okay for me. Don't take it to heart." Seeing her face that she had done something wrong, he actually had the urge to touch her head and comfort her. Looking at his palm, Yanshi was rarely absent-minded. Without noticing his abnormality, Yujun continued to admit his mistakes. "My friend said that I am an impulsive single-celled organism who is lazy to use his brain. I don't admit such comments, but the facts are in front of me, and I can't deny it even if I want to. But I have reflected on it and will never make the same mistake again in the future. You are just a little more straightforward, not stupid." Yanshi smiled and helped her find a way out. Yujun immediately looked up at him, her big eyes sparkling with emotion. "You are indeed a good person. I haven't heard such humane words for a long time." She wrapped her arms around his hands, her whole face wrinkled with gratitude. Having been with Zhuoling's group of strange women for many years, she always spoke directly. Even the words of comfort from her best friends when she was sad and depressed sounded more funny than encouraging. Where could she hear such kind and natural sounds? Now that he said that, she was moved thousands of times more than an ordinary person. Looking at her hand that was hurt by her grip, and then looking at her exaggerated expression, Yanshi didn't understand her anymore. Her emotions changed too quickly and too directly. No wonder her friends said she was a single-celled organism. But such a person is also very interesting. But then again, you are a good person, but also a strange person. Yujun suddenly thought of something and let go of her hand, with a serious face. Gradually getting familiar with her fickleness, Yanshi adapted to continue her new topic. "Oh? Really? See, this is what's strange about you. Most people will ask the reason when they are criticized, but you don't. You always smile and say really, which blocks people's words. Do you know that this attitude makes it difficult for people to respond?" Yujun accused him bluntly. It's not that she likes to make trouble, but being a good person also requires correcting shortcomings, and now she is helping him correct them. "Thank you for your reminder." His answer caused her to roll her eyes again. "You still don't understand what I said. Your behavior makes me wonder if you did it on purpose? Deliberately don't listen to too many people and keep a taciturn and reserved image, so that you can save a lot of trouble. So it's not that you don't know a lot of things, but you try not to get involved. Am I right?" Based on her observations, he is indeed very abnormal as an elder brother. Obviously very courageous, but often don't know anything when asked. It's hard not to be suspicious. Yanqi kept smiling as he listened to her analysis, the surprise in his eyes growing thicker and thicker. She really is not stupid. What if I say you guessed right? He asked. Then I can prove to my friends that I am not brainless. I am just too lazy to use it, and once I use it, it will be amazing. She patted her chest proudly. What if I guess wrong? He asked again, deepening the smile on his lips. I have no loss if I guess wrong anyway. I am not good at thinking and I should be wrong. She said this confidently, looking at her delicate face and the heroic spirit that did not match her. Yanqi could no longer hold back the movement in his chest and burst into laughter uncontrollably. Yujun was shocked by his sudden laughter and stared at him, turning from a mountain into a person. You are really weird. She shook her head in confusion, not understanding how a big brother could laugh so unpresentable. If his brothers saw him, wouldn't his dignity be ruined? Sorry, I haven't laughed so wildly for a long time. He stopped laughing, but still had a smile on his face. With her around, his hospital life wouldn't be so boring that he couldn't sleep. Is your job stressful? She couldn't help but feel sympathy when she heard that he didn't laugh often. There is pressure, but there is also a lot of fun. Really? She nodded, not quite understanding, and soon she jumped up again as if she had been electrocuted. Wait for me. After saying that, she rushed out of the garden immediately. In less than a minute, she returned breathlessly, and Z had a convenience store bag in her hand. I almost forgot my midnight snack. Let's eat together. She handed him a sandwich. Yanqi stared at the sandwich with a strange look in his eyes and hesitated to take it. Don't you want a sandwich? I still have bread, meat buns, rice balls, and bento. What do you want to eat? Yujun took back the sandwich he didn't want and reported the other food in the bag one by one. I'm not hungry. He shook his head, but the strange light in his eyes did not fade away. Are you worried that I will drug you? Don't worry. We are already friends. How could I frame a friend? She sat down next to him and hugged his shoulders in a daze. At first, she thought they would never be friends, but she didn't expect that she would be so happy to meet him now. Fate is really not something her dull mind can think through. Looking at her hand on her shoulder, Yanqi's confusion became even stronger. When she gave him the sandwich just now, his eyelids twitched for no reason, and then they kept jumping. Is this an omen? Is it a good omen or a bad omen? Yujun pushed the treatment cart on the road as usual, and clearly felt that the atmosphere around him had changed. Although their admirers did not decrease, the members changed. The number of male supporters increased a lot, and everyone's eyes were shining, like a greedy wolf ready to pounce at any time. Some of the remaining die-hard female fans blinked with a yearning glow, their eyes focused on distant fantasies. Some were extremely passionate, as if they were planning a revolution or defending a treasure. The corridor was no longer filled with a harmonious pink fragrance, but instead with a tense smell of gunpowder. No one noticed her appearance, and there were no more resentful glares, as their groups had already fought fiercely. Yujun felt more and more strange as she walked. She had just not been to the hospital for one day, so why was everything different? She turned into the ward in confusion, and was stopped as soon as she entered the door. Close the door. Muping rarely spoke loudly, and immediately lowered his head to continue his work after shouting. Yujun was confused by the fierceness and was about to fight back, but when she turned around, she was shocked by the scene in front of her. Is this a battlefield? The originally spacious and comfortable single suite was now crowded with 5 big men, and the space was immediately reduced by half, and the remaining half was filled with wires, papers, and computer equipment crawling all over the floor. The ticking sound of the keyboard never stopped, and from time to time there were a few harsh curses or painful groans. The men inside kept shaking their heads in front of the screen like crazy. Yujun was so scared that she retreated to the door and rubbed her eyes hard. She made sure that she was not dreaming before she had the strength to burst out the sound. What on earth is going on? Her roar only attracted a brief glance from them, and then they turned back to mechanically tap the keyboard and grab the mouse. Without getting a response, Yujun was furious and passed through many obstacles and rushed straight to the leader. You'd better give me an explanation. She stood by the window with her hands on her hips, waiting for Yanqi to find out. Yanqi first gave her a look to wait a moment, and his fingers stopped the work at the paragraph neatly. This wait made her anger smolder for more than 10 minutes. Just before she called it out again, Yanqi's warm smile cooled her down in time. Sorry to have kept you waiting. Do you want to change the medicine? Tell me first, what's going on? She shook her head, not letting herself be confused by his gentleness. Ever since she found out that he was a good man, her affection for him had skyrocketed, and now his casual smile could make her heart beat faster. She attributed all these abnormalities to the long-lost warmth of the world, because she was used to being ridiculed and mocked, and now someone finally spoke to her softly. Of course she would be moved for a long time. "We are working. You should change the medicine quickly. Don't waste your brother's time." Mu Ping yelled again, his sloppy appearance completely covering his handsome face. "Work? You actually want an injured patient to work in the hospital? And in the hospital? Do you have a conscience?" Yujun rushed to Mu Ping with murderous intent. She had forgiven him once, and he dared to yell at her again. If she didn't teach him a lesson, she would not be Lu Yujun. "We can't help it. This case is urgent. The boss has been resting for several days. The work has accumulated to the limit of what we can handle. If the boss doesn't take action, we will die." Mu Ping didn't have time to look at her and perfunctorily said it. His attitude made Yujun unbearable. She curled her lips coldly, fumbled on the ground for a while, and pulled hard, and Mu Ping's screen image disappeared immediately. What did you do?" He jumped up in anger and twisted her collar hard, with a very ferocious expression. "Ah, I kicked it accidentally," she said without guilt, and her hand gently placed on his wrist. An inadvertent pinch made Mu Ping scream in pain. "Damn it! What did you do again?" "Nothing, just doing justice for the heavens. For a subordinate like you who has no conscience, this is considered polite to you." She disdainfully patted the clothes that were wrinkled by him, and her anger was mostly gone. "Do you know that our hard work of nearly 20 hours has gone to waste just because of your disturbance? So who is the one who has no conscience?" The furious Mu Ping almost rushed forward to hit him. If it weren't for Along and Ahu pulling him fast, he would have broken his vow of not hitting women. The two people who were unhappy with each other stared at each other on the spot, and the tense atmosphere could explode at any time. "Mu Ping! Yen," she shouted in a low voice and immediately turned off the engine. The two people who were confronting each other turned to the safe corner by the window at the same time. "I have your information on file. I have already transferred it. You can fill in the rest after turning on the computer." His words were like an imperial decree, and Mu Ping immediately accepted the order and thanked him. After solving Mu Ping, she looked at Yujun with a serious expression. She immediately lowered her head in shame after being glanced at by him. She could go head-on with anyone, but she couldn't stand his condemning eyes. "You went too far this time," he said calmly. "But they brought their work to the hospital and messed up the ward like this," she protested in a low voice. She is a typical person who is soft-hearted and not hard-hearted. As long as she thinks someone is a good person, she will involuntarily lower her status and give way to him, and will never dare to be angry or fight. And this phenomenon is currently only effective for Yanxi, who told her that he is the first good person she has met in her life. "If it causes trouble to the hospital, I apologize and promise not to do it again. But you must also apologize to Mu Ping. That behavior is very immature," Yanxi said patiently, but sighed in his heart. It is tiring enough for him to be the eldest brother of this group of young people, and now he has to be a mentor to a reckless nurse. Is it his duty, or is he asking for trouble? Yujun nodded in acceptance, turned to Xiaoping and said reluctantly, "I'm sorry." "Aha!" Mu Ping didn't even look at her, just snorted from his nose, and his arrogant look almost made her lose control again. But when she saw Yanxi, her clenched fists naturally loosened. Maybe they still can't be friends because he always eats her hard. It might be more appropriate to say that he is her nemesis. It took Yujun 2 days to find out the reason for the situation in the corridor that day. She pushed the door open angrily, took a big step, put her hands on her hips, and yelled at the door. "What good things did you do in the ward that made the old lady in the next room come to complain to me?" The joyful atmosphere in the ward was immediately interrupted. The big men in the ward looked at each other and pushed out a poor guy to speak. "We are having lunch," Mu Ping said innocently, holding half a quilt in one hand and a soda in the other. Yujun walked towards them with a long face, looked at the mess on the table and the floor, and spoke even colder. "You actually had a party in the hospital?" She narrowed her eyes and looked at the 3 people in the small hall. Her voice was so eerie that it gave people goosebumps. Rubbing the hairs on his arms, Mu Ping was pushed out by the 2 brothers behind him to speak. "Aren't you going to stop interfering in our affairs?" He puffed out his chest and spoke loudly, but his mouth opened faster and faster unconsciously. He didn't like her, but he was definitely not afraid of her. It was just that her violent and strange power made him have to be on guard. The partner behind him had the same consensus as him, so he pushed him out without loyalty to block the saliva. The premise is that it is within a reasonable range. Yujun gave them a fierce look. Isn't the lesson of that day enough? Do you know how bad it will be for people outside to spread rumors about a group of men staying in a room for a day and a night? How do they know whether you are working or doing something shameful? As soon as the door was closed, there was no sound, and as soon as the door was opened and walked out, they looked like exhausted zombies. How controversial this is. No wonder there were so many gays gathered in the corridor that day, as well as a group of young girls who yearn for gay love, and another group of passionate fans who want to save you and return to normal. It's okay if you are misunderstood, but if I, the responsible nurse, am implicated and blamed by my superiors, who should I settle the account with? She gritted her teeth. God knows how much she has suffered for them, and they are still interested in having a party in the ward? Yujun was so angry that she simply sat on the sofa and fired, crackling to settle the grievances of the past few days. The three people who were scolded on the side were dumbfounded and stood there, forgetting the courage they should have. Speak up. Weren't your voices so loud that they could go through the wall just now? Why don't you say a word now? Yujun glanced at them contemptuously, recalling Muping's protest. It's because the equipment in your hospital is too poor. How can you blame us for being loud? Oh, really? Then how do you explain this table of food? Yujun tapped the steaming fast food on the table with her slender fingers, with an arrogant look on her face. Brother will be discharged tomorrow. Can't we celebrate in advance? Muping replied unhappily, thinking that he could get rid of this which tomorrow. He couldn't help but feel much more relaxed. Discharged? How come I didn't know? Hearing this, Yujun's fingers that were attacking Jiza paused for a moment, and she felt a breathless chest. Suddenly her stomach gurgled, and she decided to ignore the abnormality of her heart and take care of her stomach first. She swaggered and picked up a piece of Jiza and put it in her mouth, taking advantage of their weakness that they dared not speak out. Muping watched her chewing it mouthful by mouthful, not polite at all, and he didn't know whether to admire her boldness and straightforwardness, or be angry at her arrogance and rudeness. The attending physician said this when he was making rounds this morning. He gritted his teeth and said. Yujun nodded in understanding, picked up another piece of fried chicken with her fingers, and walked towards the bed next to her. Yanxi was still sitting under the window, still flipping through the book. When she thought that this peaceful scene would disappear after tomorrow, the crispy chicken leg in her hand suddenly lost its taste, and she walked towards him lazily with it in her hand. I heard that you are leaving tomorrow? Her throat tightened, and her low and hoarse voice actually sounded like parting. Yanxi turned around when he heard the voice. His face was at peace, and the slightly raised angle of his lips softened his firm lines a lot. You have worked hard these days. Are you really leaving? She asked again without giving up. The situation has stabilized, and it's time to be discharged. He still smiled. Your wound doesn't hurt. Is the concussion okay? She took a step closer to him, and Yanxi could see the anxiety on her face. The wound is no longer inflamed, and after observation, there is no sign of concussion. The attending physician decided to discharge me. He relayed the doctor's words to her in the morning. Yujun fell silent, staring at him in a daze. Such a reaction shocked the audience. Oh my God, are you reluctant to part with our big brother? Muping's eyes widened as if he saw a ghost. He couldn't believe that this wild woman could have emotions, and the object was their boss who was strong without desire. In response to him, a chicken leg flew towards him. I am reluctant to part with him, so what? Because I am worried that the patient I have taken good care of with great difficulty will be abused by unscrupulous subordinates once he is discharged from the hospital, which will be a waste of my hard work for many days. I am distressed for my hard work, Yujun stated fiercely, and her unstable tone sounded very unimpressive. Really? Why do I feel like it's a bit of trying to cover up? Muping raised his eyebrows suspiciously, insisting that she was guilty. If I really can't bear to part with your big brother, it's also because he is a good patient with excellent cooperation. If he leaves, I may have to deal with other difficult patients. There is absolutely no other reason. She raised her voice to cover her intense heartbeat. She didn't have any other feelings for Qi Yanxi. It was just because he was a good man that she felt a little sad, absolutely without any ambiguity. Is that so? It turns out that you admire my eldest brother. Mu Ping continued to tease, How could he miss the opportunity to bully her? He had been bullied by her for too long, so he should put an end to it before leaving. You! The flustered Yujun couldn't come up with a strong rebuttal, and could only stare blankly and slowly build up the firepower to beat people. Mu Ping, that's enough. Just when she was about to pounce on Mu Ping, she spoke to stop her impulse. She looked at him with confusion, wondering why the timing of his words was always so perfect. It seemed that he had calculated her movements. She smiled warmly, melting her brutality. Thank you so much for these days. He thanked her sincerely. Her eyes suddenly felt sore, and her pretty face was squeezed and deformed. After you go back, remember to take medicine and change the dressing on time. Don't let the wound get infected, and return to the doctor regularly. After the plaster is removed, you must do rehabilitation as soon as possible so that you can recover to normal faster. If those bastards throw a job to you, you should show your authority as the eldest brother and don't let them succeed. Rest more when you have nothing to do, and don't read too many books. Hey, are you my eldest brother's mother? So long-winded. Did you take the wrong medicine? Why is it so abnormal? Mu Ping's ears itched more and more as he listened. Today, the witch became very weird and nagging, which was completely different from the previous fierceness. I'm happy. What's it to you? She turned her head and yelled at him, then turned to Shi with a look of wanting to cry. Thank you for your reminder. Shi rubbed her hair and accepted her kindness. Watching them go back and forth, Mu Ping's heart sank. Don't you? Their involvement with the witch is about to end. They have nothing to do with each other after tomorrow, right? It should be like this, right? He was getting more and more unsure. Ha ha ha. I finally waited for this moment. Mu Ping stood in the middle of the ward and laughed at the sky in high spirits. Brother Ping, is your reaction too exaggerated? Ahu asked blankly while holding the luggage. Not at all. This is my most real emotional reaction. When I thought that I would never have to see the face of that witch again, I was so happy that I wanted to rush to the hall to dance a striptease. Mu Ping said loudly. Yesterday he was so excited that he couldn't sleep. He stared at the clock and counted down. As soon as the sun rose, he immediately went to the hospital to help pack. If he could get rid of Lu Yujun, the witch, a moment earlier, he would be willing to go without food and sleep. Then you go to the hall to perform, and we will go to support you. A cold remark extinguished Mu Ping's excitement. Second boss, I'm just a metaphor. Don't take it seriously. Mu Ping dropped his shoulders and wagged his tail at the figure on the sofa in a flattering manner. Really? I'm a little disappointed. How Tian drank a cup of tea leisurely, and the look on the rim of the cup made people shudder. Today is a good day for Big Brother to be discharged from the hospital, so don't waste time on me. He tried to find a way out. God knows how badly he would be teased if he aroused the interest of the second boss. That's right. How Tian pardoned him temporarily, and there was still a malicious light flashing in the corner of his eyes. Mu Ping shrank into a ball in fear and quickly huddled behind the sturdy Along to calm down. How Tian, who had played enough with his subordinates, turned an angle and focused his attention on the window. Big Brother, everything is ready and we can set off at any time. Shi, who was leaning against the window, did not respond and stared at the door in a daze. Seeing this, Hao Yin narrowed his eyes mysteriously. Is there anything else that has fallen? He asked meaningfully, and Shi immediately looked back at him alertly. No. He denied, but the thin figure flashed through his mind. What is the eldest brother waiting for? Hao Yin smiled cunningly. Although he did not stay in the hospital for a long time, he could see the changes in people's hearts clearly from the daily exchanges. Their eldest brother was injured this time. Not only was he slightly ill physically, but he was also probably a little upset in his heart. No. He denied again, and his calm face faintly revealed the embarrassment of being discovered. He was indeed interested in Yujun, but the emotion was not strong enough to be publicly admitted, and there was no need to let this deep brother in front of him know. Really? Then I'll go to handle the procedures. After receiving the warning from his elder brother, Hao Yin smiled and stopped pursuing the matter and stood up to leave. Just when he was about to touch the door handle, he suddenly took a step to the side, and the door bounced open automatically. If he had acted a second later, his perfect facial features would have been damaged. Yujun, who broke into the room, didn't care whether she hurt anyone or not. She only cared about that good man. She rushed to Shi breathlessly. I come to say goodbye to you. Thank you. Yanqi thanked her calmly on the surface, but her unstable breathing caused ripples in his heart. She came here in such a hurry just to say goodbye to him? This frankness softened his smile and revealed a hint of tenderness. Perhaps his interest in her has exceeded the estimated range, and future changes are like her emotional reactions, which he cannot control. Hearing the familiar answer, Yujun's eyes dimmed, and she murmured in disappointment. You really didn't listen to my words. Didn't she tell him that such an attitude would be hard to get people to respond? Like now, she had forgotten why she sacrificed sleep to rush to see him. Noticing her sudden low mood, Yanqi asked with concern, What's wrong? Yujun looked at him helplessly, trying to recall the inspiration she got from her dream. It was because of that dream that she jumped out of bed and rushed to the hospital. But he cut off the topic, and that inspiration was like a kite with a broken string, floating to who knows where. What important key did she forget? The more she looked at him, the tighter her brows gathered, and finally she could only squeeze out one sentence. We are friends, right? As soon as the words came out, she felt empty again. Does she really want to be friends with him? Of course. Yanqi's unhesitating affirmation made her temporarily dispel her confusion and bloomed a sweet smile that suited her appearance. Thank you. She imitated him in replying, which made Yanqi feel the feeling of being blocked for the first time. She was right, this way of responding was indeed very disturbing. He looked at the smile that remained on her lips, and his dazed look fell into the cold eyes beside him. Brother, can we set off? Hao Yan asked without warmth. Realizing his presence, Yanqi's spirit was restrained, and he regained his composure in an instant. Yeah. He nodded lightly and looked back at Yujun. Goodbye. Yujun saw him to the door eagerly, not knowing that her current appearance was exactly the kind of promiscuous and disgusting thing that she always disdained the most. But all this was just for him. Can you accompany me to complete the discharge procedures? A faint voice suddenly sounded behind her, freezing everyone's movements. Yujun turned her head slowly, and an impeccable handsome face was waiting behind her. Are you talking to me? She asked with a dry mouth. There are some procedures that I don't understand. Can I ask you for help? Hao Yan forced an invincible smile. She didn't feel honored at all. She just felt a dark cloud floating over her head. Based on instinct, she naturally kept a distance from the second in command, not letting herself be persecuted by his 1,000-year-old ice. And he often treated her as heir, and the two had no intersection. Why would he suddenly want to get in touch with her before leaving? After listening to Mu Ping's complaints and hearing a little about the second in command's great achievements, now that he focuses on her, does it mean that she is about to get into trouble? Not only is she aware of the crisis, Yanqi's eyes looking at Hao Yan are also full of vigilance. If you find it troublesome, I can handle it myself, he said in a low voice with a warning tone. I mainly want to ask the nurse for some tips on home care so that I can take care of my brother. My brother just needs to rest assured and recover, Hao Yan said with sufficient reasons, and even his smile was so confident that it was annoying. In this case, let a Long and a Hu go too. If more people learn, you will feel more at ease. Yanqi also said with a smile, and the two of them fought invisibly. Hao Yan looked at him for a long time, and finally concluded with an unfathomable smile. Then I'll have to trouble the nurse. Yujun didn't understand their undercurrents. She only knew that with Yanqi's presence, half of her life was saved, and as for the other half, it depended on Hao Yan's mood. Yujun led Hao Yan and Long Hu to complete the formalities and approve the price. The rest was to wait for the medicine and explain the usage, and she would be relieved. Hao Yan was normal along the way, and he even ignored the waves of admiration projected from the roadside, and walked freely with his absolutely elegant steps. Such calmness made people more nervous, fearing that the last cold arrow he shot would be the most poisonous and cruel. She walked carefully between Long Hu and Long Hu, paying attention to his actions. If anything happened, there would be a wall of people to block it. This tense net was broken by a soft call, revealing a huge hole. "In Hao Yan," a surprised voice came from behind. They immediately stopped and turned to look. They saw a stack of original books floating on a white cloth, staggering towards them. Everyone's puzzled eyes moved to Hao Yan in the middle of the team as the slowly moving figure approached. After waiting for a long time until the pile of books came to their eyes, they found that it was not a supernatural phenomenon in broad daylight, but a petite woman in a lab coat that was too big for her, holding a pile of materials that almost buried her, and hurried forward. The overweight books made her overwhelmed, and her arms dropped and she almost dropped the precious out-of-print books on the ground. The little girl quickly gathered her arms and took the books into her arms. But she knocked the heavy glasses on her nose crooked, completely hiding herself behind the pile of books. The muscular Longhu and who saw such a miserable situation and couldn't help but want to stretch out their arms to help her. But the man opposite her remained calm, with no fluctuations on his beautiful face. Yujun couldn't bear to see it, sighed, and took half of the book in her hand to lighten her burden. The petite woman hurriedly thanked her, and quickly used her free hand to straighten her glasses, and carefully looked at Haoyan in front of her. After scanning from head to toe, she raised her head excitedly, with a faint light flashing in the corners of her eyes, and her soft voice sounded again, full of the emotion of reunion. "Are you Haoyan? Long time no see, you are still as good-looking as in high school." When she said Haoyan was good-looking, Yujun saw a strange light flashing in her eyes. It was hard to describe the feeling, but it was inconsistent with her weak temperament. There was an indescribable weirdness and an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Haoyan's face was expressionless. After a faint glance at the other party, his perfectly shaped mouth slowly opened. "Luo Chiu." He used an affirmative sentence without a trace of doubt, and his tone was as normal as greeting someone at the school gate. Hearing her own name, Luo Chiu could not hide the joy of reunion. The small mouth under the heavy glasses smiled so big, and the excitement was like a little girl who ate candy. The cute appearance made the fierce-looking Along and Ahu laugh with their mouths bent. "I knew I was right. It was you. I haven't seen each other since graduating from high school. It has been 7 or 8 years, right? You are still as handsome as ever. There are not many opportunities for beautiful people like you. Thanks to this, I can come," Chio said very enthusiastically, but Haoyan still had a straight face without any expression, just like a beautiful plaster statue, lacking vitality. He listened quietly to her until she finished a paragraph, and finally made the second move. He nodded gently and uttered 2 words. "Goodbye." After saying that, he turned around and continued his previous steps, with neat and unrestrained movements, appearing particularly ruthless. The 2 men, Longhu, chased after him in embarrassment, and gave Chio a comforting look before leaving. Yujun froze in place, trying hard to start her rusty brain. Finally, she rolled her eyes and finally remembered. Seeing Chio looking at Haoyan's back with dementia, she couldn't help shaking her head. "How long are you going to watch? Everyone has left. You can look back and see if a little nurse with no sense of existence, look familiar to you?" Hearing this, Chio realized that there was someone standing next to her. She tilted her head in confusion. Her eyes behind the lenses kept spinning. Does she know this person? Why should she feel familiar? Seeing her confused look, Lu Yujun sighed helplessly. She really shouldn't expect too much. Forget it if you can't remember. Anyway, I am used to the habit of you sensory animals who forget friends when they see beauty. I am Lu Yujun, your unworthy high school classmate's roommate for many years. We have eaten together several times. It doesn't matter if I forget such a small thing. She said it in a self-deprecating way. It's thanks to her sharp eyes that she recognized her, but she treated her as a stranger. Should she praise herself for her good memory, or complain that she has no characteristics and people forget her at a glance? After she mentioned it, Chio's systematic brain turned, and he dug out old memories and found this person. He was so surprised that he pointed at her and couldn't speak. You are Lu Yujun. I just introduced myself." She took a deep breath helplessly, feeling that she was really unlucky recently. Not only did she have to take care of the gangsters, but she also completely forgot about old acquaintances she met. "Sorry, I'm not very good at remembering people's appearances," Chio said guiltily. "Really? You can't forget that gangster's second brother." Yujun's tone was slightly sour. After all, it was not pleasant to be forgotten, and it was unbearable to be associated with that group of evil people. "Gangsters? Are you talking about Haoyan?" Chio pushed his glasses and looked at her in confusion. "Who else could it be? It's the famous second in command, Mr. Haoyan." Yujun curled her lips in disdain, realizing that it seemed unwise for them to chat in the road with a bunch of books. "Let's talk somewhere else. Where are you going to move these books?" "Oh right, why are you here?" She motioned Chio to go forward, and then she realized that they seemed to have forgotten to reminisce about the past. Chio smiled lightly, and only her rosy and delicate cheeks made people look at her more. "After I got my degree, I went to work at the Gene Research Center of the medical college, but I have less than a year of experience." Yujun nodded. She remembered that Chio studied basic science, so it was not surprising that she would go on the road of research. You are more senior than me. I have been in this hospital for less than a month. Thinking of these bloody days, Yoojun couldn't help but grit her teeth. The source of the disaster was that group of bad elements. Chio didn't notice the resentment in Yoojun's words, and still walked forward with a smile, chatting casually and meekly. What a coincidence. I met you so soon. In fact, I seldom come to the affiliated hospital. If it is not for looking up information, I rarely leave the laboratory. How is my unworthy high school classmate recently? Thinking of what Yoojun just said, she recalled another old classmate whom she hadn't seen for a long time. When she said this, Yoojun stopped walking as if struck by lightning, staring at her blankly. The crazy woman who used to live with me was your high school classmate, and the second in command of the underworld who just completed the discharge procedures was also your high school classmate? Second in command of the underworld? Chio was stunned for a moment before reacting. Are you referring to Zhou Haoyan? He's not a bad guy. He should be disdainful of getting involved in that kind of muddy water. Yoojun waved her hand impatiently, not in a hurry to correct her simple thoughts. She just wanted to know the terrible fate between them. So you, him, and her are classmates for 3 years? Seeing Chio nodded, Yoojun fell down on the waiting chair beside her in disbelief, looking ashamed and humming. What kind of class is yours? There are only some weird people with strange behaviors. The most terrifying thing is that they all appeared in her life. I thought she would never have to deal with that piece of ice that had been frozen for 10,000 years. Now that she was pulled by their schoolmate relationship, could she escape this disaster? God, please have mercy on her. What she needs is not the evil people with weird looks, but the kind and warm people. The heavens seemed to have heard her prayers. She had not seen that group of bad elements since Yenshi was discharged from the hospital. When she went to Chio's laboratory to chat, no high school classmates suddenly appeared. The days were quiet and peaceful, but I always felt that something was missing. After changing the medicine for the patient, Yoojun pushed the treatment cart back to the nursing station, but her busy footsteps stopped when passing the door. Gone. The figure who loved to read in front of the window disappeared. The figure who was in a daze in the middle of the night disappeared. The good man who was like a mountain disappeared, and by association, something of hers was also missing. Yoojun, what's wrong with you? Why did you stop here? Another nurse also came over with a cart, and the two of them were stuck on the road. She asked her in confusion why she was in a daze. Nothing. She quickly turned the cart around to let the other person pass first, and followed behind to walk back to the nursing station. You were standing in front of the single room just now. Were you thinking about the big brother before? As they walked, the colleague casually chatted with Yoojun. How is it possible? You know how troublesome those people are. I was relieved when they left. Yoojun ignored the strange feeling in her heart and tried to clarify. That's right, but the hospital is much quieter now that they are gone. Although they are troublesome, they are quite pleasing to the eye. Without them to fill the eyes, work is much more boring. The complaining nurse sighed softly and missed them as much as Yoojun. Yoojun looked at her in surprise. Aren't you one of those who are afraid of them? I didn't stand guard in front of their door, but I felt a mixture of love and hate for them. I think you should feel the same way, otherwise you wouldn't be standing in front of the ward in a daze every day. As soon as she said this, Yoojun was dumbfounded again. Did she sigh at that door every day? Why did she sound like a woman in the boudoir? I know you have a reason for doing this. After all, you can see so many handsome guys at once. If you don't savor them for a while, you will feel sorry for your female selves. But don't make yourself too sad. Patients come and go, and we can't let down too many emotions. Take a day off tomorrow and relax. The senior said earnestly, patted her shoulder and left, leaving her no chance to explain. What? Why do you make me sound so ambiguous? How could I miss them? Ha ha. Following the back of her senior, Yoojun muttered in dissatisfaction, and finally laughed a little guilty. She didn't miss him. Absolutely not. Right? Very unwillingly, Yoojun still listened to her senior's advice and decided to ask Chio to go out and relax together. However, before the agreed time came, she didn't sleep at home, but got up and wandered on the street. I can't sleep because I'm upset. I just think it's good to get up early occasionally. She walked and talked to herself, trying to find excuses to convince herself. God knows that the last time she had McDonald's breakfast on the weekend was a few years ago. After drinking the last sip of Coke, June looked up at the sky and found that she had walked for 3 hours without realizing it. The people passing by ranged from old people jogging in the morning to young people rushing to the early movie. This discovery made her even more depressed. Oh, what's wrong with me? She looked up and asked the sky in silence. At this time, the phone rang unexpectedly. Hello. She picked up the phone weakly. June? This is Chio. It was Chio on the other end of the line. Is there something wrong? She lazily glanced at her watch. It was not yet the agreed time, so Chio must have called for something. About today's date. I'm afraid I can't go. Chio said guiltily. Why? She asked casually. Anyway, this relaxation was dispensable. Because Hao Yen wants to see me for something. When she heard the long-lost name, June's nerves immediately tensed up. What does he want to see you for? You must not be alone with him, otherwise something will happen. The cunning fox found the innocent rabbit, and she naturally worried about Chio's safety. Don't worry. He and I were high school classmates. I know him. Nothing will happen. Chio's voice was smiling, as if he thought her worries were unnecessary. You haven't seen him for many years. How can you be sure that he won't turn bad? Now he is the second in command of the underworld. You will definitely get into trouble if you are not careful. She continued to persuade him earnestly, although their organization was very strange. The eldest brother was not like the eldest brother, and the strong subordinates were too soft-hearted. But she was sure that the second in command was absolutely insidious. Okay, I will pay attention, and I will treat you to dinner next time. Click. The call was disconnected without giving her a chance to talk more, but she suspected that it must be Yin Haoyan who hung up her phone. According to Chio's personality, she would not hang up before she finished speaking. So it was probably Yin Haoyan who was against her. Strange. They are obviously brothers working together. Why is the eldest brother an upright gentleman, but the second in command is an evil devil? Looking at the phone, June muttered to herself thoughtfully. As soon as she thought of Yenshi, her brain began to spin, making her dizzy and her heartbeat accelerated. She shook her head to cheer herself up. She couldn't be depressed anymore. If she continued to be abnormal, she would soon become unrecognizable. After looking around for a while, she decided to watch a passionate inspirational movie to boost morale. She quietly waited for the ticket office to open, but someone came to disturb her without knowing what was going on. She patted the back of the man who had just cut in line in front of her and said politely, "Sir, please go to the back and line up in order, okay? Oh, why bother so much? There must be seats for so few people. Isn't it the same who buys the ticket first?" The man said in a vulgar tone, holding a cigarette in his mouth. After seeing June's appearance, his eyes revealed vulgar obscenity. June suppressed her temper and kept telling herself not to argue with such people. She squeezed out a civilized voice from her teeth. Since queuing to buy tickets is a rule, you should abide by it. If you don't even queue up when there are few people, I don't think you will really abide by the rules when there are many people. Also, please don't smoke in public places. Why are you so long-winded? Beautiful women should stand quietly by the side for others to appreciate. Don't learn from those unmarried women who force themselves to be with men. Understand. The man smiled indecently and stretched out his hand to pat her cheek, but was slapped away by June. Don't touch me with your dirty hands. She couldn't help but roared, attracting attention. Huh? Why are you hitting people? The man complained immediately when he found that there were people watching. It was a standard case of the villain complaining first. If I really wanted to beat someone, I wouldn't have started it yet. June raised her eyebrows. Zhouman's nature was about to explode. You look so delicate. Why are you so rude? The man began to win the hearts of the crowd and put the blame on her first. I won't be too polite to a bad guy who cuts in line and smokes in public, June said in a very aggressive tone. He was the one who didn't know how to provoke her, and she didn't mind him being a punching bag to vent her anger. As soon as she said this, everyone's eyes turned to the cigarette in the man's mouth, showing disdainful eyes. When the man saw the situation reversed, he was angry and made a scene. Why did you scold me? Because you were rude first and degraded female compatriots. I want you to apologize, June said proudly. That attitude made the other party more embarrassed, and the man was provoked to jump. You crazy woman. It was you who scolded people and you still want me to apologize. How can this be justified in the world? Do you dare to say that you have done nothing wrong? June also yelled back. She had long disliked this man, and now he dared to yell at her. He must want to die. The crowd began to whisper about what happened, and all of them were on Yu Jun's side. The helpless man lost his mind in shame and anger and slapped him without warning. Yu Jun had no time to defend himself, so he could only turn his head away and wait for the inevitable pain. After a burst of exclamations from the surroundings, his cheeks did not feel hot. Yu Jun looked back in confusion, only to see an arm wrapped in plaster. "Apologize." The slow baritone exuded firm authority. This voice was very familiar to Yu Jun. When the man saw the giant who suddenly appeared, his arrogance was immediately extinguished. He apologized timidly and ran away. His useless appearance was even more disgusting. Yu Jun, who didn't hit anyone, walked out of the giant's back unhappily and shouted at the cowering man, "Run faster! Next time I meet you, we'll see if you can crawl as fast as you run." Shouting didn't seem to relieve her temper, so she turned around and planned to argue with that Cheng Yaojin. How could he scare her away casually? "Hey, how can you just let him go?" "Ah." Her words turned into a cry of surprise after she saw the other person's face clearly. God really listened to her words. "Long time no see." Yanxi greeted with a warm smile. He didn't think they would meet again like this, but it was not surprising that they really met. After all, there are not many people who can cause trouble early in the morning, and she is the best among them. "Why is it you?" When she saw him for the first time, Yu Jun didn't know how to react. The depression that had been pent up in her heart for a long time evaporated all at once, and her eyes were a little dry. "Girls, don't be too impulsive when you are outside. Some troubles are not something you can solve." He gave her a lesson as usual. He just couldn't let her go. This concern was not from the concern of a teacher. It was another more private emotion. "Why are you here?" Not in the mood to listen to what he said, Yu Jun just wanted to know why he always appeared at the critical moment, just when she missed him the most. "I just came out of the company and took a walk nearby." Looking at her face, Yanxi couldn't help but smile. Although their reunion was a coincidence, was it necessary to react so strongly? Her expression was always frozen in the incredible stage, and her stunned look made him feel cute and funny. Realizing his gaze, Yu Jun awkwardly retracted her chin and made up a random conversation. "Your looks are quite useful. You can scare people to death with just one sentence, unlike us ordinary people who have to yell." After taking a careful look at him from head to toe, Yu Jun felt that he was a very competent gangster boss. The hard plaster added a bit of tough guy vicissitudes to him. No wonder those bastards ran away when they met him. She said nothing and looked at the ticket office behind her. "Do you want to watch a movie?" "I'm just killing time," she said listlessly. If he hadn't reminded her, she would have really forgotten why she had just argued with him. His appearance shocked her so much that a strange throbbing kept stirring in her mind, making it impossible for her to think about other things. She sighed silently and had to admit that he did have a great influence on her. Without going into the reasons, she gently waved goodbye to him and turned to buy tickets. He really missed her more than meeting her. Before she figured out why she cared about him, it was better for them to keep their distance. Otherwise, she didn't know how to face him. Alas, such a contradictory and retreating attitude is really unlike her style. "Why are you sighing again?" His gentle voice came from behind, which scared Yu Jun so much that she jumped and turned around. Yanxi was still standing beside her leisurely. "Why are you still here?" Yu Jun's heartbeat accelerated because of the close distance between the two. Wasn't he going to take a walk? Why was he so close to her? "I want to watch a movie too." Yan Zhao looked at the poster above her head, and she looked over and immediately understood his intention. It was another movie with a gangster background. No wonder he was so interested. For no reason, she felt very discouraged, as if she was ignored, and a bleak autumn wind blew through her heart. Oh, what happened to her? Why did he become so shy? Asterisk. As Yu Jun expected, the movie was full of passion and excitement, making people dizzy. The scattered audiences inside were either taking a nap or immersed in their own world. They didn't care whether they paid to watch the movie or just wanted to find a place to do something naughty. The only exception was the big guy next to her. Qi Yanxi stared at the screen intently, nodding his head from time to time, muttering something, and his serious attitude was like a good student in class. Yu Jun couldn't help but sneak a glance at him and shook her head helplessly. Even if she didn't pay much attention to the plot, she knew that this was a gangster revolution play. This time, her friend really guessed it right. He really wanted to whitewash himself and even came to the movie to learn from him. When she thought of this, she couldn't help but murmur jealously, He was so happy watching the movie, he was intoxicated. I really doubt if he still remembers my existence. As soon as she finished speaking, a bucket of popcorn was immediately extended to her. Do you want to eat? Yanxi asked considerately. Yujun glanced at him unhappily and muttered, Who cares about your popcorn? But he still took it and bit the popcorn fiercely to vent his anger. Yanxi smiled good-temperedly and bent over to take out a book from the bag he brought with him. After he opened it, Yujun realized that it was a sketchbook. What are you doing with this? Yujun asked inarticulately while biting popcorn in his mouth. I'm interested, he answered briefly, and took out charcoal pencils and other painting tools from the bag one after another, glanced at the scene on the screen, and began to draw on the white paper in the weak light. Watching the European streets in the movie gradually take shape under his pen, Yujun was surprised to find that his interest was really professional, and he could capture the essence with 3 strokes, and the beautiful scenery jumped onto the paper in a few strokes. Is this really your hobby? Sketching in the cinema? She asked blankly, forgetting to put the popcorn in her hand into her mouth. Seeing her innocent look, Yanxi couldn't help but narrow his eyes, and smiled to help her pull her hand that was suspended in the air to her mouth, so that she could continue chewing. She followed his manipulation unconsciously, biting the food in her mouth subconsciously. Yanxi looked at her eating with satisfaction, and some mysterious pulse stirred in his body with her puffed cheeks. Hey, you haven't answered my question yet. After swallowing a mouthful of food, Yujun took his Coke and drank half a cup before thinking about it. I started painting here because of the needs of work. But if there are scenes I like, I am used to recording them with a pen. He explained calmly, looking like an artist who is not interested in the world. Yujun glanced at him in confusion and felt that this big brother was really special. Has anyone heard that the interests of the underworld big brother are so elegant? Besides, does he need to copy back the movie scenes to transform the gang? Your brothers didn't tell you? Are you weird? She couldn't help but wonder if the Gangster brothers could stand his behavior. They often complain that I have too many rules. Yanxi smiled and put the things back into the bag, and there was no other meaning on his calm face. Yujun didn't understand what he said. Was this a complicated inside story among the underworld? Could it be that he was very hard to be the big brother and could only use a smile to hide his sadness? Suddenly she sympathized with him, and there was an indescribable heartache. She patted his chest generously. I understand. After all, your temperament is not suitable for that environment. Do your best. I believe you can succeed in the revolution. She wished him a smooth whitening. Not understanding where the pity in her eyes came from, Yanxi habitually didn't ask more questions, pointed to the 2 huge English words on the screen, and told her that the movie was over. Ah, it's over. I haven't figured out what it's about yet. How come it's over? Yujun stared at the English words jumping on the screen, unwilling to lose the movie ticket worth more than 200 yuan without seeing anything. But his mind was spinning. In the end, the gangster tycoon who wanted to change his ways was murdered by his subordinates, and was regarded as a villain until his death. Yen, she said the general ending, and Yujun immediately turned her head and looked at him with sparkling eyes. Judging from his silent cousin Qian, she must have suffered a great blow, which made her feel heavy, and an indescribable force pulled them closer. Don't be too sad. Movies are movies and reality is reality. Not all big brothers have the same ending. She tried to comfort him, but she didn't know how to express tenderness. She could only hook his shoulders and talk to him like a brother. Yanxi glanced at the arm on his shoulder, and then looked at her supportive expression. She couldn't keep up with the speed of her thoughts, but her heartbeat became clearer and clearer. He might not be able to let her go. Seeing that he was stunned and didn't speak, Yujun was afraid that he would continue to be stubborn. So she quickly put away the things and pushed him out of the cinema. It seems that your business is still quite big. Although Yanxi politely said that their company only rented 1 floor, it is not a simple person to work in such a prime location and such a famous building. Yanxi smiled and took her to the 20th floor without saying much. As soon as she stepped out of the elevator, Muping, who was disheveled, immediately rushed towards her. Brother, where have you been? There are still a lot of things that have not been decided. How can you sneak away? Mu Ping said bitterly with a droopy face. The second in command is the same. He disappeared early in the morning. Now we can't find anyone to make decisions when we need to adjust the case. We are almost exhausted. People like you should die early and be reborn. A clear female voice made Mu Ping wonder. He raised his head from the documents in his hands and was shocked to find Yujun's existence. You? Why are you here? Can't you come to visit? She said naughtily. Stay away from my big brother, you witch. Seeing her leaning against the big brother, he immediately rushed forward to separate the two. How could the big brother let a wolf into the house? How could he have anything to do with her again? Why are you so nervous? Like a resentful woman who caught an adulterer. As she spoke, Yujun looked at him with a weird look. The degree to which he protected Yen, she exceeded the duties of an ordinary subordinate. Is this hiding other debts of love? Why do you look at me like that? Mu Ping was so frightened by her stare that he felt as if he was stripped naked. No wonder, no wonder. She shook her head around him, muttering to herself. No wonder what? Don't waste our time anymore. This is not the place for you. Get out of here. Mu Ping was so irritated by her stare that he even choked up. Mu Ping, don't be rude. She is a guest, so you are responsible for receiving her. Yen, she gave the order unhappily, and her tough tone did not allow anyone to refute. But brother, what about work? Mu Ping didn't want to spend even one more second with the witch. They just don't get along. And if they meet, they will only fight each other to lose. Along and who will help me? As soon as the words were spoken, the office door closed, leaving no room for appeal. Mu Ping drooped his shoulders dejectedly and fell on the chair with a bruised face. He looked so miserable that even Yujun had to pity him. It's not a big deal to be scolded by the boss occasionally. She sat opposite him. When he saw the pretty face in front of him, Mu Ping immediately cheered up in anger. It's all because of you, a witch who has brought disaster to the country and the people. My eldest brother has a good temper. When has he ever shown us a bad face? You made this place a mess as soon as you came. If you are not a witch, what are you? Hey, you have to speak with conscience. This garbage dump was there before I entered the door. Don't blame me. Yujun screamed because of the false accusation. Mu Ping glanced at the miserable situation in the room and didn't have the energy to argue with her. What do you want to visit in this state? I just want to study your nest carefully. Get up, you have to treat me well. It's her specialty to beat a drowning dog with a stick. She doesn't pursue the enemy when he is tired. Mu Ping glared at her resentfully, stood up unwillingly, and took her around the office. The layout of the whole floor is designed in a very systematic way, but Yujun became more and more confused the more she looked at it. As soon as the elevator came out, there was a corridor. On one side of the corridor, there were a bunch of small rooms separated by twists and turns. Every door was closed. There was either the sound of computers running or unusual silence coming from inside. On the other side, there was a reception room, a conference room, and a large room that was always locked. Although it was clean and bright, she couldn't see any of its features. At the end of the corridor was Yen Shi's exclusive space. The air became noticeably more refreshing after passing there, making her reluctant to leave. Witch, are you going to leave or not? You can't see your brother no matter where you stay. He doesn't have time to care about you now, and he won't be able to care about you in the future. Mu Ping couldn't stand her intoxicated look, and his tone was sour that his teeth fell out. What do you care? You'd better introduce the environment properly. If your elder brother knew that you didn't treat the guests well, I wonder if he would be angry. He was sour, and she was not an easy person to deal with. As long as he mentioned that his elder brother was pressuring him, he had no room to fight back, and could only stare at her and grit his teeth. Why are you staring? You haven't told me what these rooms are used for. She stared back impatiently. As the saying goes, if you don't go into the tiger's den, how can you get the tiger cub? If she didn't understand the environment of the nest clearly, how could she understand how much persecution Yenshi suffered here? The small room is full of things you don't like, are not interested in, and don't want to see. You can watch it or not. The locked big room is the battlefield of men, which is unbearable to watch. I don't have the key, and the people inside won't open it, and I can't invite you in. Mu Ping said listlessly. Really? Yujun glanced at him suspiciously and was about to open a small room to find out. What are you doing? Just as his hand touched the door handle, the ghostly voice came over again. Second in command. Mu Ping was also startled and greeted the other party with an unstable tone. When she saw Hao Yin, Yujun immediately gave up the adventure and moved in front of him, crossed her hands, and asked fiercely. You went to harass Chiyu so early in the morning. What bad things do you want to do again? She didn't forget how dangerous this second in command was, and every move was full of scheming. It must be not a good thing for him to go to Chiyu. You can ask her for details. Please don't delay my work time, Hao Yin said coldly. Yujun smelled an unusual smell from his cold and hard lines. Her wild intuition told her that In Haoyan was angry, and the matter was definitely related to Chiyu. She wanted to ask something more, but Haoyan flashed into Yen's office first and stood by the door to talk. Brother, the time agreed with Brother Yong has come. Is the time up? Wait for me, we will set off immediately. Hearing this, Yenshi immediately packed up his documents and hurried to the door. When he passed by Yujun, he gave her an apologetic smile. I'm sorry. I can't treat you well today. I don't want to see their faces now. Du Haoyan was right. She was not bored at all. How could a woman be bored when she went to a bar with a bunch of men? It was really the style of the underworld. To talk about business, you must go to a place where there are ladies to accompany you for drinking. Yujun squeezed the glass hard and took a sip of beer. Her anger became more and more intense as the alcohol accumulated. Looking at this bunch of middle-aged people who were not interested in drinking, she was full of shit. Disgusting. Disgusting. Why do these men use their greasy hands to ruin the fair skin of their female compatriots? Don't they know that this shop is clean? The ladies are just pure companions and do not provide sexual services. Don't they see how sad the stiff smiles on their faces are? In the whole box, probably only Chi Yenshi, who was carefully confirming the details of the contract, and In Haoyan, who was surrounded by beautiful women but remained indifferent, were still rational. The others were either knocked down by the dregs or overwhelmed by lust. After another glass of draft beer, Yujun could no longer bear it. She put the cup down heavily, and the sound it made successfully attracted everyone's attention. She stood up with great strength and walked to a boss whose hand was still on the hostess's thigh, grabbed the dirty pig's trotter with force, and sternly scolded. Your hand is out of line. You harassed the other party, you must apologize. The atmosphere suddenly became solemn, and everyone was nervously waiting for the big boss, who could decide whether the business would be successful tonight. Ha ha ha. Aren't you a nurse in the hospital? Why did you come here? Are you here for a part-time job? After 3 rounds of drinks, Brother Yong took a while to recognize Yujun, and then laughed boldly. The tense air was shaken away by the laughter, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Yujun had no time to reminisce with him, and said stubbornly, Do you think a few laughs can make up for the harm suffered by this lady? Apologize. I want your apology. Brother Yong looked at her expressionlessly for more than 10 seconds, and then burst into laughter again. He pulled Yujun, who was unprepared, on his lap with his backhand. Are you protesting that I didn't take care of you? Don't worry. I will take good care of you now. After saying that, the greasy pig's trotter turned to attack her serious face. The situation changed so suddenly that everyone forgot to react and could only watch him getting closer and closer. Brother Yong, I brought her here, not a lady here. Just when he was about to touch her, Yenshi took the first step to block Brother Yong. Brother Yong glanced at his clamped hand, then looked at the seriousness on Yenshi's face and Yujun's stubbornness, and smiled again unexpectedly. Brother Chi, are you kidding me? Don't be so careless here. You're just saying that Lu or something? Brother Yong couldn't remember the deceased saint, and he kept scratching his greasy head with his fat hands in confusion. Mu Ping, who was standing by, hurriedly replied for fear of getting his dandruff on him. Lu Xiaohui. Everyone says that our eldest brother is Lu Xiaohui, who can remain calm even when a woman's arms are flirting with him. Brother Yong, don't worry about it anymore. That's right, it's that Lu or something Hui. Your brother Chi is a famous bachelor with a cold heart. How could he bring a woman here by himself? Don't lie to your eldest brother. How can you monopolize such a cute girl and not play with her? Brother Yong approached Yujun while talking. She pulled Yujun over to block her. I really brought her here, he said firmly, and his serious look made everyone gasp. Yujun's heart was boiling with heat. She was always the one who stood out in front of others, but she didn't expect that hiding behind a mountain would make her feel so comfortable. She almost uncontrollably pressed forward, and couldn't help wanting to take a few more breaths of the smell that made people attached. Alas, she really changed, and became a member of the flower-crazy guards, who taught her to always lack warmth and be unable to resist the charm of good people. Brother Yong and Yenshi looked at each other for a long time, and there was still disbelief on their faces. You have always been against the people? As soon as the words came out, the sound of gasps sounded one after another, fearing that the business would be ruined. What should I do to make Brother Yong believe my eldest brother? Hao Yen suddenly asked. In the panic of everyone, only he who had no blood or tears could remain calm. It's very simple, as long as Brother Chi, who doesn't touch women, kisses her. She will soon believe that brother Bu Suchi has moved her heart. The simple-minded brother Yong couldn't think of any other ideas, so he had to use the most direct method. Brother, what do you think? Hao Yen looked at Yanxi with ulterior motives. Yanxi certainly understood that he was playing tricks, but the reason was unknown. What good would it do Hao Yen to frame him and Yujun like this? Seeing Yanxi frowning and thinking, Yujun felt very distressed. Since she had already made up her mind to defend Yanxi, how could she allow Hao Yen to continue to oppress him? Suddenly, she got out from behind Yanxi without a word and kissed him without warning, holding his head. Giving her first kiss in this situation seemed worthless, but she was still very happy that the target was him. Not only because he was a good man, but also because she liked him. Yanxi stared at her close face in a daze, and before he could feel the softness on his lips, she pecked him a few times like a storm, and in the blink of an eye, she opened her mouth again. Her kiss was like her, he was elusive, but he was attached to it. After the kiss, Yujun hugged his waist with great momentum and announced loudly, I came here on my own to see if my man is having an affair outside. Are you satisfied with this answer? She didn't want to ruin his business because of her, so she had to perform the preset ending according to the audience's request. The room was silent, and no one knew how to react to the sudden turn of events. Finally, the cold-blooded Hao Yin spoke first. Brother Yong, do you accept this explanation? She narrowed her eyes, like a cunning fox. The first thing Brother Yong did when he came to his senses was to laugh rudely and pat Yanxi's shoulder. Ha ha ha. Why didn't you know it earlier? If you had known that she was your woman, I wouldn't be like this. What a pity, little sister. Your brother, she calls me Brother Yong. You should call me Big Brother in the future, so that I will have another wet sister to understand. Ha ha ha. I'm in a good mood today. Everyone should drink to your heart's content. Brother Yong pushed her into Yanxi's arms and raised his glass happily. Being pushed and pulled like this, Yujun lost her self-awareness. She was shocked and wide-eyed, unable to believe what she had done. Zhuoling was indeed foresight. She was really hurt by her impulsive reflex behavior. She actually raped Yanxi. How could she face him in the future? Are you okay? Yanzhao saw that she didn't respond and asked worriedly. The careful care from behind made her even more ashamed. I'm fine. I did that just now because I didn't want to embarrass you. Do you mind? She lowered her head and asked embarrassedly. I mind. Mooping on the side rushed to answer and nimbly passed through the hug between the two. What did you do? Yujun, who was hurt by the collision, gave him a vicious roll of the eyes. Just now, I was not on guard, so you had the opportunity to defile my eldest brother. Now I'm here. Don't even think about touching my eldest brother again. He roared with gritted teeth. He was furious. How could this witch use her mouth to get his most admired elder brother? Is it not okay to just act? She hit back mercilessly. Even when the fight was fierce, they tried to keep their voices down, not to disturb the carnival atmosphere around them, and not to bring up any more topics. Don't try to lie to me. I know you've been coveting my elder brother for a long time, and you want to use this to create a fait accompli to force yourself to become our elder brother's sister-in-law. What a sinister woman. Mu Ping insisted that she was a foxy witch. Even if his words were not entirely right, they touched Yujun's heart. She did have improper thoughts about Yan Shi now. So what? So what if I act? If I become your elder brother-in-law, I will definitely start with you first. They argued more and more fiercely, and in the end, the two of them simply stared and sneered, competing to see who was more powerful. This side was arguing fiercely, while the other side was silent. Yanxi's eyes were locked on the fiery Xiaoying, and there was no expression on his resolute face. Brother, do you think it's acting or true feelings? Hao Yen raised his glass to him. Yanxi looked at him thoughtfully. Did you do it on purpose? He looked into Hao Yen's evil eyes with understanding. Hao Yen had expected that Yujun would be mistaken for a hostess, so he let her come and cause this commotion? Hao Yen didn't answer, and Chen Luan took a sip of red wine. Why? He couldn't guess his motive. This can help you sort out some facts. Isn't it good? Hao Yen smiled profoundly, and the dim light made his expression dim and bright. Yanxi lowered his eyes and whispered, What good will this do for you? Hao Yen would never do anything for only one reason, and he was worried about the scheming behind him. If the target was limited to him, he could just laugh it off, but if Yujun was involved, he had to be careful. If Big Brother can come to his senses, it might be a good thing. He didn't answer directly, The light in his eyes was dazzling and chilling. Yanqi half closed his eyes. He knew that the eyelid twitching now was a bad omen. Yujun tasted insomnia for the first time. Lu Yujun, who claimed that there was no place in the world where she couldn't sleep, actually had insomnia. It's not that she was too busy to sleep, but she was asked to lie in bed, and she still kept her eyes open until dawn. This situation is really weird. Sitting in the nursing station, Yujun was puzzled. She hadn't closed her eyes for 3 days. Why was she still so energetic? And her head was clearly replaying the bits and pieces of that day. When she thought of what happened in the hotel, she couldn't sit still and had to get up and walk around to a well-ventilated place to calm herself down. It was this kind of irritability that made her wait until Zhou Gong. Yujun, are you okay? A soft hand suddenly rested on her shoulder, frightening her so much that she jumped up immediately and looked around nervously. It's you. Seeing the familiar face, she returned to her original position with relief. Why are you squatting here in a daze so late at night? Guang Chio bent down to look at her worriedly. Just now, she passed by the garden and saw a white shadow. She thought it was some supernatural phenomenon and rushed to study it. But it turned out to be Yujun squatting here in a daze, which made her a little disappointed. I was going to ask you, why are you still staying in the hospital so late? Yujun glanced at her uninterestedly, wondering why she, a researcher who didn't have to be on duty, didn't go home to sleep. I stayed to analyze the data, and I didn't pay attention until now. Chio said it very casually, as if it was already a routine. Oh, Yujun responded uninterestedly, immersed in her own troubles. Are you troubled? Chio sat down beside her and asked casually. I have been suffering from insomnia for 3 days. Oh, after a brief conversation, the air fell into silence again. This scene made Yujun particularly touched. It was the same way that he and she started in the sky garden a few days ago. Now thinking about it, a sweet and bitter irritability came over her again. I have midnight snacks. Do you want to eat? Chio took out the food in the bag and asked her. All kinds of coincidences hit her heart, making her unable to bear it anymore. She asked hoarsely, Chio, under what circumstances would you want to kiss a man on the mouth? What? Chio answered her with a can of spilled coffee and bread that fell on the ground. What are you embarrassed about? I don't ask you to rape in Hao Yin. Why is your face so red? Yujun was helping to clean up while wondering about her suddenly flushed face. I. Chiyu was speechless. Her face was getting hotter and hotter. Okay, I'll confess to you. A few days ago, I forcefully kissed In Hao Yin, his sworn brother, on the mouth, and I've been thinking about it until now. If it's impulsive, I usually forget it when I wake up. But the problem is that I can't even sleep now, and I can't forget it even if I want to. What do you think I should do? Unable to bear Chi-Yu's hesitating, Yujun simply told her everything to prevent the innocent girl from making random associations. Chi-Yu took a deep breath to stabilize her heartbeat, pushed up her glasses, and tried to regain her rationality. If you like the other person, this is called lovesickness, she said steadily. Yujun tilted his head to look at her. What if you don't like it? I don't know about that. Chi-Yu shrugged helplessly. The conclusion is, I fell in love with him? She pointed at her nose and asked. Chi-Xiu nodded uncertainly. I'm afraid so. Yujun calmly accepted the fact. Falling in love with Yen, she was not a bad thing anyway. But what should she do next? She ruffled her hair in annoyance. Why did she always have troubles one after another? Are you free? She suddenly asked Chi-Yu, who was also in a daze. What to do? I'm about to get off work. Do you want to go out and relax together? She was not suitable for long-term thinking. She decided to follow her wildness. Yujun's so-called relaxation was riding a motorcycle at high speed on the coastal road. Chi-Yu, who had never done anything crazy, looked very uneasy sitting in the back seat. Yujun, is it okay to ride so fast? She yelled at the top of her throat. Don't worry, I'm very skilled. It's just that I haven't practiced for a long time. She didn't finish her words. Otherwise Chi-Yu would definitely jump out of the car out of nervousness. Facing the salty sea breeze, Yujun tightened the accelerator to chase the speed of the wind. This kind of carefreeness is her style. As for those petty things, she will talk about them after she vents. The gradually brightening sky in the early morning allowed her to see the road ahead clearly, and also exposed the dark corners. Turning a big bend, the other side of the embankment appeared in front of her. Along the embankment is a barren sandy beach, which is usually sparsely populated. Now there are suddenly a few containers and a group of familiar people. The marching formation looks very much like the group of bad elements on patrol. Chi, you also noticed it. Huh? Isn't that Hao Yin? What are they doing here at this time? Yujun also wanted to know what big things could happen in the remote seaside in the early morning with strange containers and a group of gangster brothers. This better not to be the bad thing, she thought. In order to confirm their whereabouts, she tightened the accelerator and chased after them. Two black luxury cars were running one after the other on the narrow coastal highway. Their high stability, which was worthy of their price, provided a comfortable resting space in the car. Yanqi, who was alone in the back seat, folded his arms and closed his eyes to rest. The work that had come to an end gave him some time to rest. Busy thoughts settled down, and an elegant beauty slowly emerged. He had become accustomed to such misses and tacitly accepted this feeling, but he still needed to plan more about how to start. The shadow in his mind gradually became clear, so realistic that even the sound appeared. Yanqi suddenly opened his eyes and looked out, and the pretty face was smiling at him against the glass. Stop! Stop! Two lightning flashes sounded in the car, and Yanqi and Haoyan asked Muping to stop in unison. Xiaoping was confused by the yelling and dared not neglect it. He stepped on the brakes, and the harsh GGA sound broke the tranquility of the early morning. Unlike luxury RVs that stop as soon as they are told to, their motorcycle slid for 100 meters before stopping. Taking off her helmet, Yujun exhaled and glanced at the worn tires with heartache. Before she got off the car to check the damage to her beloved car, two menacing shadows first fixed her eyes. She had never seen Qi Yanqi like this. He actually slammed the car door, stepped hard, and even ran? Isn't he like a mountain, always calm and unmoved? Yanqi pulled her out of the car without saying a word, took out the key and threw it into Hao Yin's palm. Are you racing? Yanqi asked in a deep voice. Are you driving her racing? Hao Yin pointed at the pale Chio and asked. His tone was equally cold. Yujun stared at the two ice statues in front of her in fear, and was too cowardly to nod and admit it. I just wanted to say hello to you, she responded in a low voice. She didn't understand why they were so sullen as soon as they got off the car. Even if the work wasn't going well, they couldn't take it out on her. Humph, your greeting is really brilliant. You're not willing to die, but you're still asking others to keep you company. Hao Yin mocked her coldly. Yujun looked at him in confusion. How did she offend this piece of ice? We just come here to relax. Unable to bear Yujun being attacked from both sides, Chio tugged at Hao Yin's sleeve to try to divert his fire. Hao Yin turned around and stared at her silently for so long that even the slow-witted Yujun could smell the ambiguity. Finally, he grabbed Chio's hand and walked towards one of the cars. Brother, I'll go first. I'll let you settle this account first, and I'll find a chance to get the rest back from her. As soon as they finished speaking, the two drove away, leaving a group of people looking at each other in bewilderment. What happened to them? Yujun pointed at the remaining smoke and dust and asked. Chio and Haoyan? This combination is too weird. Explain your behavior first. Yanqi sighed helplessly, sighing for his troubled future. He knew that love was troublesome, but falling in love with her was definitely a big trouble. Not only could she not handle the trouble she had caused, but she also provoked Hao Yin, the evil star. And he, as the eldest brother, always had to finish the job. I said it was just a greeting. Why are you making a fuss? She couldn't understand the solemnity on his face. Why do you always do things that make people worry? Yanqi asked earnestly. Why couldn't he escape the fate of taking care of others even when he was in a relationship? I really just wanted to say hello to you, she said innocently. She just wanted to see him. So is that not okay? Yanqi looked at her lovingly. He sighed again. Go back, and talk again when everyone has rested enough. Now is not a good time to talk. When he thinks it through, he will tell her how he feels. Only then will they have a real start. But brother, how should we go back? Muping grabbed two sets of keys in embarrassment, one of which was the motorcycle key that Hao Yin had exchanged with him before leaving, and the other was for another RV. Besides him, the eldest brother and the witch, there were also the burly Along and Ahu. So one car definitely couldn't fit them all. Help me ride the motorcycle back. This sentence left Mu Ping alone in the cold wind. He had to look up to the sky and scream, Witch, it's really a witch. She would only snatch the eldest brother from him and make him unlucky. In the quiet and solemn office, the eldest brother lowered his head to review the documents. The younger brothers worked hard to revise the plan, and the second in command raised his glass to enjoy the scenery. Everything seemed unusual, but only those who experienced it could understand the undercurrent. Since that night, the eldest brother still handled affairs wisely, and the second in command was as beautiful as usual, but whenever the two met, the atmosphere would become very unusual. The strange atmosphere first exploded when Hao Yen, who had calculated that his work was over and was tired of the poor scenery of high-rise buildings, walked back leisurely. Brother, do you want to talk about personal matters after finishing your work? This sentence broke the tense nerves of the younger brothers. Not only did the people inside the door drop their pens in fear, but also the eavesdropping ears on the door were shocked. Yanxi looked at him sternly. What do you want to talk about? I want to hear the decision of the big brother. Holding the hot coffee pot, Hao Yen pursed his lips and smiled. Yanxi looked into Hao Yen's eyes sharply. He really came to force him to admit it. I like her. What's the benefit to you? He didn't understand why Hao Yen was so enthusiastic about his emotional development. As soon as the answer came out, there was a lot of grief and everyone was caught off guard. Muping almost burst into tears. Unexpectedly, their wise big brother really fell into the hands of the witch. The nervous men surrounded Yanxi and used their mouths to give first aid, but no one took action. Finally, there was nothing she could do, so she could only count on the second in command who called from the guest. After hanging up the first dispatch call, Hao Yen continued to dial the second number, muttering, I remember Miss Lu lives nearby. On weekend night, the moon was like a hook, and a single woman was naturally sad. Yujun lay on the balcony railing, staring at the moon in a daze. That night, Yanxi's expression made her very concerned. He seemed to have something to say, but he was full of helplessness. She was reluctant to leave him like that. He said he would talk to her later, but after so many days, there was no news. Was he really angry? When she thought that he might no longer pay attention to her, she had a headache and wanted to bang her head against the wall. It's annoying. Why is love so troublesome? Daughter, your dear mommy is here. You can discuss any troubles with mommy. Lu's mother had just finished watching the rerun of the Korean drama and found that her daughter was also frowning and sighing at the moon like the heroine on TV. So she immediately came over excitedly. She had waited for more than 20 years until this day. Their daughter finally grew up and understood lovesickness. Yujun didn't look back. She knew with her knees that her mother's expression must have been learned from TV. She pretended to be very sensible and intelligent, but she was actually waiting to see the fun. She was depressed and wanted to yell at her mother, but as a good daughter at home, she didn't dare to take off the mask she had worked hard to build. Otherwise, her mother's long-term reading skills would haunt her for the rest of her life. She took a deep breath in line with Lu's mother's expectations, and her delicate eyebrows frowned. Mom, how did you fall in love with Dad? How did you fall in love? As soon as she looked, Lu's mother's eyes opened wide and smiled slyly. Why, have you finally come to your senses and want to fall in love? That's great. If you don't keep silent, we'll almost suspect that you and Zhuoling are having an affair. Otherwise, how can two pretty girls have no scandals at all? Come on, what are you thinking about? How can it be possible for Zhuoling and I to be together? Besides, she already has a quality partner. Yujun said, holding back her headache. It's really hard to talk to her mother. I don't know if it's because of the generation gap or because her mother has early onset Alzheimer's disease. In short, her mother often talks nonsense and it's hard for one person to understand, making it difficult to continue the conversation. What? Zhuoling, that crazy girl, has a partner? You can't lose to her. Tell me, do you have a partner too? Lu's mother shouted with an exaggerated expression. Every time she saw her mother like this, she really wanted to persuade her mother not to watch TV series, go to the market to buy vegetables, or wait for the garbage truck at the end of the alley. She was really fed up with learning the tricks of gossipy women and abusing her family. She sighed weakly. Yes, I have someone I like, but I'm already annoying before I confessed my feelings. I can even crush his intimacy, let alone win over others. My daughter, why are you so pessimistic? Have you ever seen a Korean drama where the romance is smooth and easy? Without the twists and turns of car accidents, blood cancer, or having the same father and mother, how can it make people cry? What's the big deal about quarrels? Isn't it common to see misunderstandings on TV? This is how love can be so lingering. Bring the person back to us for identification when you have time. This is more important. Lu's mother put her arm around her daughter's shoulder and shared her experience of Korean dramas. Yujun was a little touched and was about to thank her mother for her encouragement, when Lu Ma pulled out a photo from nowhere and stuffed it into her hand, saying tirelessly, "Don't be sad if you really don't have a chance with that person. Anyway, the old won't go away and the new won't come. There are so many young talents, are you afraid that no one will want them? Look, the first one is an electronics upstart, and his net worth is extremely high. I don't like guys who will be bald in the future," Shunji pointed out. Yujun saw the trend of the future appearance of the people in the photo. Then the second one is a famous teacher from a famous school. If he opened a cram school, he would definitely be very successful. Lu Ma was not discouraged and continued to promote. "I have hated teachers since I was a child." Yujun was not motivated. "Well, you should be able to find no fault with the third one. The chief engineer of a large hospital is not only young, has good character, and has a handsome face, but I heard that he will soon be promoted to associate professor. He is really a young talent with a bright future. If your mother was 20 years younger, she would definitely abandon her husband and children to pursue him. You doctors and nurses are a perfect match. There is nothing to complain about, right?" Lu's mother said proudly. This is the best she snatched from the hands of mothers-in-law. If her daughter dared to frown, they would immediately become mother and daughter. This time, Yujun spent more time studying the photos. 3 minutes later, she smiled. "I have seen this man. He is Zhuoling's senior. His conditions are indeed very good. But you forgot the most important point, he doesn't like women. So sorry. This time it's not your daughter who picked him. But he struck her out a long time ago. If she remembered correctly, he was Zhuoling's sworn sister. How could she get such a best?" The dream balloon of the idol was burst. Lu's mother slumped her shoulders in frustration and said, "I just hope that my daughter can be entrusted to a good man and live the rest of her life in wealth and luxury. Who knows that my daughter is not ambitious and it is difficult to find a rich husband. Alas, when can I stop worrying about my child?" Hearing her mother's murmurs, Yujun's worries became even more difficult to express. Could she tell her mother that she liked a gangster to the point of dizziness and panic? "Mom, do you care more about a person's character or his profession?" She tried first. Lu's mother raised her Cheong Yao-style watery eyes, blinked innocently, and spoke sharply. "Of course it's character. If a person has no character, he is a scum no matter how noble his profession is. If I say I like a gangster, daughter, there is a gangster. A gentleman in black clothes looking for you." Yujun's confession was interrupted by her father's panicked call downstairs and the sudden ring of the mobile phone. She rushed down the stairs while answering the phone in a panic. "Hello, this is Yin Haotian." The voice on the phone was cold as usual. "What? Why are you looking for me?" Yujun was alert when she heard the cold voice. "You should have seen our people," Haotian said calmly, as if he had calculated everything. When she stepped down the stairs and saw the scene, Yujun understood what he meant. "What do you want to do?" She used her eyes to comfort her parents while fearlessly facing the 4 strong men. "Brother is injured," Haotian said without emotion. What? What happened to him? Why is he injured again?" Yujun shouted excitedly. She knew that she was in danger. He had just recovered and was injured again not long ago. The timing was too coincidental, so coincidental that it made people smell the smell of conspiracy. "Burns. Although it's not a problem. Can you come and take a look?" Hearing this flat and ruthless tone, Yujun couldn't help but feel hostile. His elder brother was injured. How could he be so calm? Or was this exactly what he expected? With her natural sense of justice and her special feelings for Yenshi, she had no choice but to rummage through the boxes and cabinets to prepare the medicinal materials. "I'll be there right away," she said firmly, and she would never allow anyone to bully the people she protected. "Okay." Haotian hung up the phone without saying much. Seeing her daughter surrounded by 4 burly men, Lu's mother shouted worriedly behind her. "Daughter, was it your crush who called just now?" Upon hearing this, Yujun almost fell down. Her daughter was taken away by a group of strange men. Should a mother ask this? No. Who would be unlucky enough to be favored by him? She answered disdainfully. She was not blind, but blind enough to walk into the tiger's mouth. "Is that so? Then you should go early and come back early." Lu's mother waved her hand and hugged Lu's father to go into the house. "Don't you ask where your daughter is being taken?" Yujun asked angrily. "She is their only daughter. Is it okay to be so casual? I just want to ask when you will bring a son-in-law back?" In Lu Ma's heart, a daughter can never compare to a son-in-law. Looking at the closed iron gate, June made up her mind fiercely. She wants to be bad. No. She wants to be restless in front of her parents. She has been hiding her true nature for more than 20 years, trying to play the role of a sensible and well-behaved daughter. But she is not as good as a son-in-law who is nowhere to be found. How can she be embarrassed? No matter. She can do whatever she wants and love whoever she wants in the future, and her parents will definitely not have any room to say. The style of the underworld is indeed fast, ruthless, and accurate. It takes others 10 minutes to drive, but they arrive in 3 minutes, so fast that the police have no chance to issue a ticket. And she can get used to this style. From the way she slammed the door and got out of the car and ran straight to the office, it seems that she has more and more potential. How did your elder brother get injured? Even though her steps were hurried, she did not drop her worries. He was. The 180 centimeters tall burly man beside him not only stuttered, but even spoke more slurredly than a mouse. Forget it, you speak. Not having the patience to listen to him continue to practice his tongue, June pointed to another one. The person who was pointed shook his head violently as if he was sentenced to death. No, I don't know anything. What are you doing? Your boss is injured, but you know nothing. What if he is assassinated one day? Will you also shake your head and say it's none of your business? She was furious, with her hands on her waist, and started to lecture in front of the office. What kind of morality is this? The boss was injured, and these subordinates were either afraid. They couldn't speak or they didn't farm to sever their ties. Isn't this gang too lax? If she were the boss, she would have to be re-educated. When she touched the cold door handle, she realized how abrupt this idea was. I'm afraid she has really become bad, and actually wants to join a gang? Was it because she liked Yanxi and wanted to help him relieve his worries? Or was it because her subconscious mind was just playing tricks? Before she could figure out the answer, the people in the room could no longer wait to open the door and look for someone. What are you still daydreaming about? The boss's hands are all blistered. When he heard the door move, Mu Ping rushed out to catch him immediately. June quickly followed him, and when she saw the redness and swelling on Yanxi's arm, she immediately took out the medicine and handled it smoothly. Did you give him first aid? She asked professionally. I used cold water, Ahugwa said. Very good. She nodded with satisfaction, and her authoritative look startled the men for a moment. She really looked like a big sister, and she was also a big sister who was very good at using medicine. Seeing her bandage the wound beautifully in 2 or 3 strokes, Yanxi, who had been silent for a long time, finally spoke. Sorry, I'm bothering you so late. Thank you for making this trip. June looked up at him, and her tense nerves finally relaxed. She asked softly, why did you get hurt again? Such a polarized attitude shocked a bunch of men in the room. That which can be gentle sometimes. It seems that not only their boss is weird, but she is also abnormal. It's okay to be splashed with hot water. Yen, she said easily, and glanced at Hao Tian with a cold arrow. Why was he splashed with hot water? She asked worriedly, holding his injured arm carefully with both hands. I poured the water on my brother. Hao Tian in the corner spoke, and there was no apology in his calm voice. Hearing this, June immediately locked the target, and her watery face rolled up a storm. I knew the problem was with you. What do you want? Aren't you afraid of retribution for framing your brother like this? June stared at him with great momentum. Dare to touch the first man she has been attracted to in 20 years. No matter how powerful Hao Tian is, they are going to fight. Hao Tian asked Yanxi leisurely, Brother, am I framing you? The focus returned to the injured male protagonist, and Yanxi looked at him calmly. Do you think I will thank you? It would be great if I could make up for my crime. Hao Tian smiled. You will get your retribution sooner or later, Yanxi said in a low voice, with a faint smile on his raised eyebrows. You are very welcome. Hao Tian raised his glass elegantly to the sky, without any trouble at all. Everyone was confused by their back and forth. June was suspicious and asked immediately, What are you talking about? Isn't it better to say it directly? Don't worry. It's all right now. Yanxi smiled at her. Seeing his long-lost smile, a mountain breeze blew through June's heart, cool, with a sense of security, gently surrounding her. She sniffed with emotion. After tasting this kind of happiness, who can let go? She grabbed his hand and said seriously, I have something very important to tell you. You must listen carefully this time. She moved her chair closer and stared at his face seriously. Kissing you in the hotel that day was indeed a reflexive behavior without thinking. Although it was just a casual act to deal with Brother Yong, I thought about it for a long time and felt that it shouldn't be like this, but I can only think of these. The real reason was told to me by others. I went to the beach that day because I was upset about this matter, so I used racing to vent. But I always forgot to say that I insisted on coming over to say hello to you because I really wanted to see you. Her big eyes were full of emotions, and every word she said was her true heart. Yanxi was very moved. Just when he wanted to respond to her feelings, she started talking to herself again. After saying so much, the conclusion is that I like you. She deepened the strength of her hands, and her eyes widened to the limit. Are you willing to accept me? After saying that, she tensed her nerves and waited for his answer. It was a romantic scene, but she acted it out like a gangster seeking revenge. If he didn't nod, would his hand be cut off by her, and would her eyeballs roll out? In order to avoid a bloody scene, he agreed first. Without hesitation, he nodded immediately. Okay. Hearing this, Yujun exhaled the breath she had been holding for a long time and squeezed her face to try not to let the tears fall. Ah, she finally had a reason to stay with him. When everyone was immersed in the emotion of the budding new love, a shrill cry broke all the beauty. No, my big brother. Everyone turned their eyes and focused on the dark figure in the corner. Big brother, how could you fall in love with this witch? Seeing that the matter was done, only Muping could not accept the fact. He couldn't figure out when his big brother was bewitched by the witch. The demon girl is good-looking, but that's her only advantage, and the eldest brother doesn't judge people by appearance. Could it be that he promised to marry her because she took care of him in the hospital? Demon girl? You still call me a demon girl? I'm the eldest sister-in-law now. Yujun used him proudly. Now she can not only have him legitimately, but also bully him with a clear conscience. A demon girl is a demon girl. You must have secretly cast a spell. Otherwise, how could my eldest brother agree? Mu Ping fought back fearlessly. Yujun was so angry that she glared at him again. Has a rival appeared just when the relationship started? The tense confrontation between the two was cut off by Hao Tion's words, cutting off all the sounds. The two turned stiffly to Yen Shi and then turned back to look at each other. In addition to hostility, there was also some strangeness in their eyes. Yujun glared at him even more fiercely. Now she was not only dissatisfied with him, but she also had to defend her first love. She knew that the man she liked was a treasure, and now even men wanted to snatch it from her. Don't you even go and find out if Lu Yujun is so easy to mess with? Mu Ping glared at her even more fiercely. Now it's not just the problem of his elder brother being abused, but also the big question mark of whether he is gay or not. Does he hate the witch because he likes his elder brother and is unwilling to be snatched away by her? So he can't back down even more. The atmosphere in the room became weird. The brothers discussed in whispers. Yen Shi had no intention of speaking. His dark eyes stared at the nobleman who couldn't finish his coffee. The initiator of the uproar enjoyed the strong coffee aroma and raised his glass generously when he found Yen Shi's gaze. He, in fact, doesn't like coffee. He is just a demon who likes chaos. Lying on the sofa, Yujun stared at the person behind the desk without blinking. Although her first love started smoothly, she always felt that something was missing and she was very uneasy. Do you have to be so cautious? Yen Shi looked up and saw her staring at him in a daze again. She spent her non-work time like this these days, always staying by his side. If there were other people present, she would look around with a sense of danger. When they were alone, she would look at him thoughtfully. This way of getting along was like her confession, so different that it made people laugh and cry. His helpless voice recalled her mind, and she immediately jumped to the ground and said firmly, "Of course, don't you understand how dangerous your current situation is? There is a second in command who wants to frame you at any time. You don't know Hao Yin well, so you have such a misunderstanding. He is not the kind of person you think." His words were reserved, but they were all true. Hao Yin has conspiracies all the time, but his conspiracies are really not what Yujun thinks. I personally have a prejudice against him. No matter how much you say, I still doubt him. Yujun raised her hand to block what he wanted to say. Second, there is a suspected homosexual who is eyeing you. I must defend your chastity. The more open the world is, the more wars there are between men and women. They can fight for power, status, and men. Yujun is now competing with Muping for men. Muping is just misled. There is no need for you to confront each other. Speaking of this, Yanqi had a headache again. Deliberately fanning the flames when others are distracted. This is Hao Yan's most hateful conspiracy. Don't say it anymore. I know they are all your brothers. It is inevitable that you miss them, but I also have my own ideas. She will have to deal with them again later. She doesn't want to think of those two faces at the moment. I think you care about them more than you are in our relationship, Yanqi said in a low voice. Yujun looked at him in surprise. You? Are you jealous? I don't like you spending too much time on other men, he said dictatorially. Although he looked serious as if he was discussing business, the strong sourness came out of his eyes without any concealment. Yujun stared at him without blinking, and the expression on her face was as shocked as if she had seen an alien. This man who was as steady as a mountain was actually jealous of her. Where is the phone? She suddenly turned her head away, her voice unusually excited. What are you going to do? Her behavior was puzzling. I'm going to call my best friend and tell him that there are men in the world who are willing to be jealous of the two-faced people, tomboys, and unsaleable goods she mentioned. She wanted to overturn her friend's prediction with facts. Yanqi could no longer tolerate such a reaction. He pursed his lips and pulled her leaning body back, but the frost on his face melted instantly when he saw her expression clearly. Why is your face so red? He asked hesitantly. Yujun rolled his eyes at him. You can be jealous? Can't I be embarrassed? This mountain really doesn't know how to adapt. Didn't he know that girls are thin-skinned and good at making excuses to cover up? It made her unable to find a place to be shy or happy. Are you embarrassed? He raised his thick black eyebrows and raised the corner of his mouth in a funny way. He almost forgot that her unpretentious emotional reaction was what he admired most. Is it not possible? Unable to avoid his scrutiny, she had to use rudeness to cover up her embarrassment. Of course. He smiled happily. It was this self-evident answer that made people unable to continue the conversation. The previous uneasiness occupied Yujun's heart again. She asked sullenly, You don't like men, right? Yanqi patted her head with a smile. You don't believe me? No. She shook her head vigorously. I just want to make sure what she was worried about. His hand slid down her hair, and the favor in it was self-evident. I'm not gay, not now, and never in the future, he said affirmatively. So Kumuping is completely hopeless? The fate of her love rival made her brows relax a little, but soon they drooped again. Will I bother you? No. Really? Her eyes lit up immediately, and when she saw Yanqi nod and emphasize, she rushed over excitedly. I knew you were a good person. She hooked her arm around his shoulder and smiled like a good brother. Yanqi looked at the hand with strange eyes, which made Yujun feel confused. Is there a problem? He shook his head, and the feeling of powerlessness became stronger. When will their relationship progress catch up with the normal speed? Let go of your dirty hands. Suddenly, a thunderous roar broke out, shattering all hopes. Yanqi sighed heavily again. It was these troubles that made him unable to relax. Even talking about feelings had to deal with the interference of these brothers. Yujun glanced at Leidu sympathetically. Poor Muping, destined to be heartbroken, but still bluffing here. What are you talking about? Muping was embarrassed by her look, and his handsome face turned red. Yujun approached him compassionately. It doesn't matter. There are beautiful women everywhere, although it is difficult to find another one like Yanqi, but he should not give up hope. I don't want to listen to your nonsense. Muping waved away her outstretched hand. Hey, don't be arrogant just because you are polite to me. I rarely have sympathy. Yujun's temper rose. Why do I want your you? He didn't appreciate it at all. So, you still don't give up on Yanqi? She narrowed her eyes chokingly. I swear to defend my brother from the evil hands of the witch, Muping said passionately. You! As usual, the two began to confront each other. Are you tired of quarreling every day? Yanqi asked tiredly. They were not annoyed, but he was almost collapsed by the quarrels. Yanqi! Big brother! The two of them hung their heads in shame like children who had made mistakes. Yanqi sighed silently. He didn't know when this situation would end. Muping, don't we still have work to discuss? Let's go. He still had to separate the two people first. Muping nodded and followed his big brother out. Where are you going? Yujun asked nervously. To make the final confirmation with the client, Yanqi said while putting on his coat. To the hotel to discuss? She had to ask after learning from the previous experience. No, That's good. She nodded with satisfaction, and then she thought of something and shouted at Yenshi's back. But be careful not to let that guy take advantage of you. Then she gave the guy a warning look. After watching them leave, she took off her armor and her face automatically fell. She couldn't get rid of the dark cloud in her heart. What on earth did she forget? Sometimes Yujun really hated her wild intuition. It was because she was thinking about it after Yenshi left that this happened. She stared blankly at the chaotic emergency room. Although there was no major accident, the people involved in the accident were very serious, so serious that a group of people crowded here to care for one person who was injured. Less than 3 months later, Yenshi was sent here again. This time the reason was that he was hit by someone maliciously. She knew that there were dangers around him. If she didn't keep a close eye on him, he might be separated from her forever. She was so sad. Why did they bother her? Yenshi's black-clad subordinates were panicking and pulling people around to ask questions, and from time to time they came over to ask her opinion. Her colleagues in white couldn't stand the harassment and protested to her frequently. Finally, she couldn't stand it and yelled, "Have you had enough?" In an instant, all the noise stopped, and those in black and white looked at her with their mouths open. She glanced at the black-clad troops with great momentum. "Your eldest brother only has external injuries. He will be fine after treatment. He should be able to leave the hospital after resting for one night. Along and Ahu will stay to help take care of him, and the others will be dismissed." Under her stunning courage, the brothers did not dare to object, and they dispersed on the spot in less than 10 seconds. The efficiency was even more exciting than the National Day military parade. Looking at the much quieter emergency room with her arms around her chest, Yujun turned tiredly to her colleagues in the hospital. "This will not hinder the operation and peace of the hospital, right?" She smiled at her colleagues, but the ordinary people in white took a big step back. The one who can yell at a group of evil people should be the most terrifying, right? With the same idea, the kind angels in white also disappeared efficiently. Not bothering to guess what their shocked expressions meant, Yujun now just wanted to rush in to take care of Yenshi. Unexpectedly, just as she turned away, a death warrant came over in a hurry. "Son, you're still working overtime at the hospital so late, and I, as your mother, am considerate enough to bring you midnight snacks." Lu's mother came in with a sung song, stuffed the midnight snacks into her daughter's hands, and then peeked inside. Yujun rolled her eyes in annoyance. Her mother must have been watching a mainland historical drama. One of her best friends who happened to see her having sex with a man reported it to her. Otherwise, she wouldn't have spoken in a difficult Beijing dialect. Judging from the ecstatic expression on her mother's face, that enthusiastic sister must have broadcast the situation in the emergency room in a very detailed and exciting way. "Got it, you can go home and watch TV." She turned her mother's head and pushed her out. "Don't worry. I've asked your father to record it for me." Lu's mother refused to leave and stayed outside the clinic, looking around. "I heard that you rushed back to the hospital just for a man who was in a car accident? Tell me the truth. Is that man the golden son-in-law I have been waiting for more than 20 years and rarely see in 100 years? Luma looked at her with gossip. When Luma showed an irrational look, it meant that her nagging index had risen to the highest value. If she didn't find a way to get rid of him, her gorgeous screenwriting skills would probably set off another catastrophe. Yujun knew her mother's destructive power very well and hurriedly put on a fake smile. "Mom, where did you hear this news? We are just friends. You know I have many friends. Your daughter is loyal. Of course, she will rush to the front when her friend is injured." "Really? Do you think your mother is so easy to deceive? If you don't tell the truth, I will go in and find out myself." Luma glared at her ruthlessly. "She gave birth to my daughter. How much does she weigh? If you want to deceive her, watch the TV series for a few more years before trying again." Yujun said that she knew her mother was very nagging and gossipy, but she didn't expect that she would be a very troublesome mother when she was talking. "She is tired and resting. It's not good to disturb her casually, right?" she explained. Lu's mother asked her, "Tell me the truth. Is he the one you like?" "Yes." Due to the situation, she admitted it. "What does he do? What does he look like? How old is he? How many brothers and sisters are there? Does he have any bad habits? Do you like to watch TV with your mother?" When her daughter nodded, her mother was so excited that she forgot to be serious and grabbed her hand and yelled out a series of family investigations. Yujun's head was even bigger. She finally remembered the key point she missed. What she should worry about most is Yenshi's identity. How should she tell her mother that the person lying inside is a gangster boss, who looks like the eldest brother, has a group of vicious brothers, has no bad habits, but a bad job? He doesn't like watching TV, but loves to draw movie scenes. Which elder would like their daughter to be associated with such a person? Even if the son-in-law is crazy and irrational, her mother would not be happy, right? Mom, let's talk about this later. Let him recover first. She smiled and dragged her mother slowly to the door without leaving any trace. Today, knowing that her son-in-law has been found, Lou's mother is satisfied. Before getting in the taxi, she smiled kindly and said, "When he recovers, remember to bring him home so that Mom can heal him and get rid of bad luck." "Okay, I'll try my best." Yoojun responded casually, and just as she was about to close the door, her mother grabbed her wrist unhappily. "Girl, if you dare to dump him before he recovers or be abandoned by him, don't even think about stepping into the house again." The implication was that she must bring him. Seeing her mother's fierce face, how could she object? She nodded her neck fiercely until the shadow of the car disappeared. Her steps were particularly heavy when she retracted her sight. She really hates bad guys. What's good about being a bad guy? Besides getting hurt, he can't show up in public and always lives in the shadows. No wonder he's called Gangster. Alas, the gangster boss, wouldn't want to be her black market lover, right? Holding her chin and tilting her face, Yoojun stared at the window in a rare quiet moment. Finally, she sighed sadly, and her abnormal appearance made the others in the room shudder. "Hey, which stop pretending. No matter how weak you pretend to be, you can't hide your rude nature. And the boss who is out on business won't see it. It will only make us sick." Mooping despised her weak appearance. Yoojun didn't look at him and immersed herself in troubles. "What are you thinking about?" A warm feeling approached Yoojun. A gentle voice plus a cup of fragrant black tea. Such concern is much more intimate. Yoojun looked up at Chio's peaceful face and took the teacup with heartwarming. The two of them gathered together in Yenshi's office because of Hao Yan's suspicious nature. Otherwise, they should have had afternoon tea in a cafe with good lighting and good atmosphere, instead of sitting here being mocked by a monkey. What's more hateful is that Yenshi actually agreed to Hao Yan's house arrest for them, because they were not sure if they would be in a bad mood and make an appointment to go racing again. Although her credit was often bankrupt, she did not want even Yenshi to distrust her. Alas, this was not the worst. The trouble was her mother. "It's really rare that you didn't follow the eldest brother this time. Didn't you always follow the eldest brother wherever he went before? Especially after the accident, you were more like an old mother, treating the eldest brother as a son every day. What happened today?" Not used to her silence, Mu Ping tried to provoke. "Because In Hao Yan followed." She glanced at him faintly and said weakly, "Second in command? What does this have to do with the second in command?" He was confused. Yoojun retracted her lost sight and looked at him with a look of rotten wood that could not be carved. "Don't you feel it? Every time your elder brother gets into trouble, In Hao Yan is not there, or he deliberately makes a mistake. Don't you know what this means? Coincidence. What else can it mean?" Mu Ping said as a matter of course. Yoojun closed her eyes in despair and decided to give up this idiot. "Idiot, this means that your second-in-command deliberately framed Yen Shi, and you actually have no sense of crisis at all. Are you too stupid? Or have you already conspired?" When she opened her eyes again, she flashed a sharp light of suspicion. "You misunderstood. Hao Yan is not that kind of person." Chi-Yu whispered to defend her high school classmate. Yoojun looked at her hopelessly. "You are so kind that you are always bullied by him. If his character is not considered evil, then everyone can be an angel. But, ha ha ha." Chi-Yu's weak voice was drowned out by Mu Ping's uncontrollable laughter, and his presumptuous look made Yoojun raise his fist to take it. Mu Ping immediately raised his hand to surrender. "I'm sorry, I'm exaggerating." He apologized, but the smile on his lips looked insincere. Yoojun snorted in disapproval and didn't want to pay attention to him. Mu Ping quickly defended. "We all know that the second in command has bad intentions. This is a consensus that has existed since we recognized him. Now no one will seriously accuse him of being ruthless. So I couldn't help but laugh nostalgically when I saw you so excited just now. Since you know he is a dangerous person, why do you dare to stay with him?" She didn't understand the thoughts of these gangsters. "The reason is simple. He is the leader. How can you eat if you don't follow him? What about Yenshi? Why does he raise a tiger to harm you?" She didn't believe that Yanxi couldn't see the true nature of Yin Haoyan based on his inner thoughts. So why did he reuse him? Their relationship is even more complicated. They are both friends and partners. It's hard to separate them. Muping glanced at her ambiguously. Are you jealous? Why should I be jealous? Yujun glared at him fiercely, shook her head and huddled in front of the window in a daze. Their affairs on the road can be put aside for now. Her family affairs are more difficult. Her mother has been sending out deadly calls recently, not only during the 3 meals but also during snacks, afternoon tea and midnight snacks, and even during the time of taking out the garbage. Her opening line is always "come back, bring the person back," and the process is to repeat this sentence over and over again. The ending is more exciting, and she will add 2 more hee-hee, and coldly throw out the same fixed lines. After a few days, she was so nervous that she almost rushed to the telecommunications bureau to set fire. Want to talk? Chio was considerate and poured her warm new tea, and her gentle appearance was like an angel flapping its wings. It's a pity that such a good person would be targeted by the devil. Don't you really want to admit your relationship with Lu Haoyan? Yujun asked without looking back. Chio's hand that was pouring tea froze for a moment, and he looked at her helplessly. What are you talking about? Don't be embarrassed. Anyone with eyes can see how special Du Haoyan is to you. I'm afraid you've been swallowed up by him. She shook her head with regret. Chio looked at Muping nervously, and he also looked sympathetic. Poor thing, a good girl was sacrificed. You really misunderstood. Haoyan and I are really not the kind of relationship you think. Chio's mouth was no match for the 4 regretful eyes. She was so discouraged that she didn't know what to say. Okay, you and Xian Haoyan are just high school classmates, and there is no other relationship. Are you satisfied with this? Yujun comforted her casually. Anyway, the facts were obvious, and the words of the parties involved were not very important. Okay, I just asked about my situation. Now, if you assume that Yin Haoyan is your boyfriend, would you dare not introduce him to your family? She didn't have time to fool around. She had to find a solution quickly to be safe. Otherwise, if she let her mother bombard her, she would lose 10 years of life without going crazy. Of course not. Who dares to bring a devil home? Mu Ping answered without hesitation. Who listens to your opinion as a comrade? I'm asking Chi-yu. Yujun rolled her eyes at him. Why don't you dare introduce Brother Chi to your family? Chi-yu asked back. Yes, my brother is not only wise and brave, but also handsome and magnanimous. No one will not look at him more than once. It's a waste for you. You have no right to despise him. Mu Ping said indignantly. His perfect brother is the best. It's her blessing to be close to her brother. I don't know why she is not grateful to God sooner or later. What else is she dissatisfied with? Alas, you don't understand my pain. Of course I know Yanxi is good, but I am troubled because he is too good. She groaned with her head in her hands. If he was not good, she would not fall in love with him. She would not be unable to let go of others, and she would not fight with family affection for his identity. If she didn't love him, she wouldn't have to worry about it. But I just like him. Her muffled voice came out from between her fingers, telling of the torment she had suffered for many days. What exactly is the problem? Chio pushed his glasses and put on a research spirit. The problem lies in his identity. Why would such a good person survive in the dirty underworld? Why would he be a gang leader? Why didn't he succeed in bleaching earlier? Why didn't my mother find out about his existence later? At least I have to wait until he gets rid of the underworld, and then I will definitely take him everywhere to show off, so that people all over the world know how good I, Lu Yujun, am and how excellent the person I found is. After saying that, she raised her head excitedly, but saw 2 stunned faces. What's wrong with you? What did you just say? Muping blinked and asked her incredulously. Didn't you hear it? Yujun squinted at him. She said so emotionally, but he dared to ignore her? I'm not sure what I heard. Muping was shocked, swallowed his saliva and asked with difficulty. You just said that the big brother is in the underworld? The big brother you mentioned. Is it our big brother? Nonsense. Do you have a second big brother? She glared at him impatiently. You don't have to hide it from me anymore. Although you are bleaching, you are still a gangster. I am not afraid of you, nor do I despise you. There is nothing to hide. She patted her chest to assure, and she was rewarded with a burst of laughter. Haha, Yujun. I think there must be something wrong here. Even the objective scholar didn't know where to start. Of course I know there is a problem. Otherwise, why would I have been worried for so long? I just want you to tell me the solution. Seeing that they didn't take it seriously, Yujun got angry. It's a misunderstanding. Just as she was going crazy, Hao Yin's cold voice shook off her murderous aura. The three people in the room looked at the door together and saw two people at the door, one with a wicked smile that deserved a beating, and the other with a shockingly dark face. No one knew when they came back or how much they heard. The only thing that can be confirmed is that another storm will be set off. Muping, who was so excited that he didn't know what to do, had no sense of crisis. He hurriedly ran to the side to share the most creative jokes of the year with his eldest brother. Did you hear it? She just said that we are mixed up in the underworld. After that, he laughed uncontrollably again. Yenshi's face darkened a layer after hearing this, and he walked in front of Yujun expressionlessly. Why do you think so? He asked. Isn't that the truth? She said hesitantly. No. Yenshi's overly forceful rejection hit her confused mind. She widened her eyes and raised her voice. You are not gangsters? What are you? You have been here for so long. Haven't you found out what we do? This is a visual creative company. Whether it is advertising planning or computer animation, we accept it, but we don't want to be gangsters. Muping said jokingly. Visual creative company? Liar. That's just a cover for you to deceive the world. Right? Yujun still didn't believe it. How do they look like fashionable and glamorous creative people? Yujun, it's true. Chio gave her a fatal blow, and she fell on the sofa in shock. Oh my God. What joke did God play on her? Yenshi sat down in front of her and asked helplessly, Why do you think we are gangsters? Yujun looked at him woodenly, her mouth opening and closing unconsciously. From the beginning, you have been brazenly flaunting it everywhere. Your ferocious looks and arrogant manners make you look like gangster brothers no matter how you look at it. Her voice was flat and her mind was blank. They are not gangster brothers. How could she make such a joke? This time, Zhuoling's bad mouth hit the mark again. She will really be hurt badly by her self-righteous impulse. Her absent-minded look made people feel reluctant to blame her, and there was no way to blame her. Yenshi took a deep breath with a long way to go. He had been prepared for it, hadn't he? If you fall in love with her who is impulsive and fickle, you must be able to remain calm and have an unshakable determination at any time. Aren't these the qualities he already possessed as the eldest brother? Now he just needs to hone them a little more. After quickly completing the psychological preparation, he patted Yujun's shoulder to comfort her, and after a deep sigh, he spoke gently. Let's just clear up the misunderstanding. Don't think too much. Why do you look so similar? Yujun looked at him blankly, her voice hoarse. She asked abruptly, but Yenshi could still give her a clear answer. When you saw us in the hospital, we had just taken on Brother Yong's case, and he was the gangster who really wanted to whitewash his reputation. He asked us to come up with an advertising plan for his career that would make him famous. This was a very challenging and difficult case, and the brothers' colleagues were very interested. However, there was no great inspiration, and everyone was stuck in a stalemate, so Hao Yin suggested that why don't we stand in the client's position and experience the process of black gang whitewashing? Maybe it can inspire new ideas. This proposal was unanimously passed, but less than 2 days after it was implemented, I was injured, and then it was what you saw. Listening to Yenshi's explanation, her heart became heavier and heavier. You are too slow. How come you didn't find out what we do after so many times in and out of the company? I took you on a tour, but what did you see? Mu Ping was puzzled. Although their signboard was not dazzling, it should not be ignored so thoroughly. Yujun raised her head and glanced at him. I didn't see anything. It was you who said that the closed small room was not worth seeing, and the locked large room was not worth seeing, so what could I see? After speaking, everyone's eyes turned to the man who was suddenly speechless. It turned out that Mu Ping also played a large part in misleading her. Why are you staring at me like that? Am I wrong? Colleagues are thinking in their own studios the atmosphere must be tense and boring, and an outsider would certainly find it boring. And the large studio used to complete the plan must be a mess inside. There is no place to walk, and it is not good to enter, so why bother to find something to do? Mu Ping defended himself. He was not wrong, and Ren could only blame the witch for being stupid. Yenshi rubbed his swollen forehead. He no longer wanted to care about it. He just wanted to untie all the knots as soon as possible and give him a peaceful life. Do you have any other questions? Yujun's eyes gradually became brighter, but they were vague and lifeless. Why did you get into a car accident? Since they are not gangsters, and Yin Hao Yin is not the second brother who wants to usurp the throne, how can this series of disasters be explained? Brother Yong's enemies have mistaken us for them. This simple sentence explained everything. So easy to the point of idiocy. Her eyes dimmed in shame. What about your previous injury? How did it come from? Yujun asked again. There shouldn't be a more outrageous answer that would make her feel even more inferior, right? As soon as she said this, Hao Yin and Muping, who were drinking tea by the window, paused for a moment, and the teacups stopped for a few seconds before being brought to their mouths, as if they were hiding something. Yanqi was even more stunned, and he cleared his throat to hide some emotion. About that matter, well, let's start from the day of the earthquake. I remember that it was a strong earthquake of more than 5 degrees. Brother, if you feel embarrassed to speak, I can speak for you. After all, I am also one of the witnesses. I remember the details of that day clearly. Mu Ping, who couldn't get a word in, finally found a gap to move his tongue and actively strived for the opportunity to satisfy his appetite. In an instant, Yan Shi's slightly embarrassed face suddenly cooled down, and his eyes glanced at him very lightly. Go ahead. Hearing such a cold voice, Mu Ping's scalp was numb. Although it is common sense that disaster comes from the mouth, people have to experience it personally to learn lessons. He spoke tremblingly, fearing that if he was not careful, the boss would give him ice cubes again. On the day of the earthquake, the power suddenly went out in the studio and the shaking was severe. At that time, the boss was walking down the stairs from the attic with a pile of information. As a result, his eyes went dark and he fell down without steadying his steps. He just bumped into Along's table, and the utility knife on the table fell off, scratching his left hand. The copper floor lamp next to it was also kicked by the eldest brother, and with the shaking of the floor, it fell forward. The eldest brother used his hand to block it, and ended up breaking his right hand. The above are all the inferences we made based on the situation at the scene after the incident. As for whether it is right or not, no one dares to guarantee it. After all, it was so dark at the time and I didn't see it very clearly. I don't know if I am wrong to say this, eldest brother. Mu Ping smiled very flatteringly, begging Yan Shi to forgive him for his slip of the tongue. Yan Shi didn't look at him. He just waited for Yu Jun's reaction. After hearing this, her face turned green, and she couldn't believe that her professional judgment had gone astray. Was it because she had a preconceived notion that his injury was caused by a fight, which led to a series of misunderstandings? Do you have any more questions? Yanqi patted her cheek to call her attention back. Yujun stared at him with complicated eyes. He was indeed a good man. She had seriously distorted his values, but he was not angry at all and was so kind to her. Was he too kind? Or did he not care about her at all? With her head lowered, a shadow covered her entire face. Not yet. I'll tell you when I get home and think about it. Goodbye. She didn't look at anyone, and walked out silently with a slightly hunched back. The gray back refused to give extra comfort, and she wanted to think about it alone. Yujun reflected at home for 3 days, and couldn't find the right expression to meet the group of men who had been wronged by her for a long time. She was ashamed, embarrassed, and most importantly afraid. She suddenly feared Yanqi's kindness. That used to be the main reason why she was obsessed with him, but now she was afraid to face that gentle face. He is a mountain with a gentle cool breeze, stable and reliable. Everyone trusts him and relies on him. Everyone who approaches him can be protected by him. No matter if they are presumptuous or make mistakes, he will smile and not care. No one can shake a mountain, including her. She is not sure that she can enter his heart. This feeling of insignificance has bound her desire to see him. Will he miss her like she does? I have troubles. Do you want to hear it? Yujun's sad voice echoed in the mechanical sounds of the room. No one responded, only the timer on the instrument ticked. She slumped her shoulders in great sadness, walked to the computer with heavy steps, and said it again. Chio, I have troubles. Are you willing to listen to my complaints? Oh, the eyes behind the lens had no time to pay attention to her, and kept looking at the screen. Yujun sighed 3 times in self-pity. But in just 3 days, how could the world change completely? 3 days ago, Chio would serve her tea and chat with her attentively. But now he coldly left her alone to sigh at the room full of experimental equipment. 3 days ago, she was still obsessed with Yanqi's tenderness. But now she questioned whether his feelings were just a polite response. Love. It's really not something that her simple mind can understand. Do you want to see it? Just when she was desperate and lying down waiting to die, Chio's sweet voice suddenly came into her ears. She looked up in surprise, only to see Chio's mirror flashing with strange colors, and the smile on her face was also blurred by the flash of Ingmu. That look reminded her of In Haoyan. She asked a little timidly, "What are you looking at?" "What Brother Chi looks like now." Chio smiled, clicked the mouse in his hand, and the dense data on the screen immediately turned into a video broadcast in the office. Yujun couldn't help but move closer, and when she saw the close-up of Yenshi passing by the camera, her eyes immediately turned red. She hadn't seen him for only 3 days, but she missed him so much. It turned out that she was also a disgusting and promiscuous nympho. "How could this be?" she asked with a trembling voice. "Hao Yen sent it. He said it was his favor and asked you to cherish it." Yujun really didn't want to have anything to do with that piece of 1,000-year-old ice, but she couldn't bear to accept this favor. "I really want to see you in person." She reluctantly touched the screen. She finally realized that she couldn't leave him. No matter if he was a gangster boss or a selfless mountain, she would rely on him. Who told him that he was the first good person she had feelings for in her life? She was impulsive and didn't use her brain, but she knew how to fight for important things. She wanted to see him. Hao Yen said that you can see him at the hospital gate now. Chio read Yujun's thoughts like telepathy. She was shocked and trapped her. "How do you know?" "Hao Yen said it." Chio pointed to the email he had just received on his computer. Yujun held the screen in disbelief and pointed to the other office with shaking fingers. "Yenshi is still sitting there. How could he come so suddenly?" "This is a recording from an hour ago." Chio pointed to the time in the upper left corner. Yujun was stunned, and a chill ran through his body. How come everything is under In Haoyan's control? "Why should he help me?" she asked in a daze. Haoyan said, "Don't be polite. He will charge interest." Chio opened the second letter and read it. Without any other reaction, Yujun rushed out the door immediately. If she stayed any longer, In Haoyan didn't know what terrible message would come. She had better find a backer first. When she rushed to the door panting, Yenshi just stepped out of the car. Seeing him getting closer and closer, Yujun was dominated by wildness again and impulsively threw herself into his arms. Ignoring the looks of others, she hugged him tightly and took a deep breath. It was this taste of stability that taught her to be resolute. Yenshi was so held by her enthusiasm that he forgot to react, and only felt a little pain and heat in his chest. "No matter what you say, I will not let go, for the rest of my life." She buried her head in his chest and declared firmly, "If I say I can't breathe, will you not let go?" Yenshi asked with a smile. Yujun immediately loosened his arm upon hearing this and nervously checked his whole body. "Did I hurt you?" "You hurt me," he whispered to accuse. She was shocked and looked at his cold face in shock. "Are you angry?" It turns out that when a mountain gets angry, it will become a landslide, which will not only become thorough, but also full of destructive power. I didn't mean to misunderstand you. Really, it's really because I was too impulsive. She stuttered nervously. "That's not what I care about." He had no expression on his face. "I promise not to quarrel with Mooping in the future and not to upset you." She was eager to admit her mistake. If she is willing to change, can she stay with him again? Reluctantly accept. Yenshi did not comment. "I promise not to drive fast and cause trouble again. You can consider it." Then what are you angry about?" She couldn't think of any other evil deeds that could displease him. "I'm angry that you've been silent for 3 days. Do you know how worrying you were that day? How dare you hide without making a sound?" He spoke in a strong voice, without yelling at her, without scare her with his teeth and claws. Just a few words were enough for her to reflect. She whispered weakly, "I'm sorry for you. I can't face you." "What do you mean sorry for me? Is it okay to make me upset for 3 days for no reason?" He said in a clear voice, even scolding people with grace. "Will you worry about me? If it was Mu Ping or someone else who disappeared today, would you worry about them too?" Hearing a glimmer of hope, she immediately held on. "Why should I worry about them?" He rolled his eyes weakly, trying to find logic in her jumping thoughts. "Are you only worried about me?" she asked anxiously. Yenshi met her bright eyes in confusion. "Is this important?" "It's very important, because I want to know if I am different from others in your heart, and if you like me more. Even if it's just a little bit, I will be satisfied," she said humbly. Now he understood everything. It turned out that after so much trouble, the two of them were still standing still. Their love had never started. The frustration accumulated for a long time finally pulled down his shoulders, and he exhaled faintly. The sighs he exhaled these days were enough to make him unlucky for the rest of his life. Aren't we dating? Why are you still doubting it? Because I took the initiative to bring it up at that time. I was impatient and my tone was rude, so it sounded like a threat. You might not give in, but you would accept it politely because you are a good person. She always felt that he had committed himself to her these days, so she would feel uneasy from time to time. Because I am a good person, so I will accept everything? He raised his voice and asked. She nodded guiltily. Then if Mu Ping also wants to date me, I will also nod and say yes? It's impossible and you can't. Yujun immediately grabbed his hand and held it tightly. How could she give her Yanxi to others? Her possessiveness made Yanxi's frown loosen a little, but he was still very unhappy. Do you think I don't like you? He asked dangerously. If she dared to nod, he would definitely let her see his other side besides being a good person. Yujun shook her head. You are good to everyone, even me. It would have been better if she didn't say it. As soon as she said it, Yanxi's face darkened. Am I so promiscuous? No, you are reliable and introverted, and you are loved by everyone. Surrounded by people, I can't see your true feelings. She is very stupid, and she is not good at things like feelings. Her sad look softened his heart. He pulled her close and said softly, Have I ever lied? Have I ever forced myself? Yujun shook her head. He was a principled man who would never go against himself for the sake of being polite. Then I said I was willing to accept you. Do you think it was fake or just a polite remark? She shook her head again, her mouth flattened. Is he hinting at her? Then can I announce everywhere that you are my man? Can I introduce you to my parents? Her lips trembled, and her tone was shaking unpleasantly. If you don't give up. Yanxi leaned against her forehead and smiled gently. Maybe his love affair is about to blossom and bear fruit. Really? I knew you were a good person. Yujun patted his back excitedly, washing away her previous pitiful look. He liked her, and this realization pushed her to the peak of happiness. Yanxi watched her punch him again and again, just like brothers going out for a drink to celebrate. Suddenly, he understood that there was still a long way to go before the day of blooming and bearing fruit. When everything was settled, all the puzzles were solved. Yujun licked the popsicle while watching the people walking around in front of him. The scene of the incident took place on a desolate seashore, where a group of men in black stepped out of the black car in unison and walked towards the small boat stranded on the coast with murderous intent. Have all the goods arrived? A man wearing sunglasses asked another short man on the boat with only two cloudy eyes showing. All are ready. The man carried out two large boxes of things from the cabin. No cutting corners, right? The man in sunglasses lifted the lid and took a look. How dare we neglect the goods you want? The man smiled servilely, and his wretched appearance made it hard for people to trust him. The man in sunglasses looked at him suspiciously. You should know that if you do business dishonestly, there will be retribution. As soon as he finished speaking, the strong men in black behind him immediately put on a murderous expression, and the man immediately knelt down and begged for mercy. Go away. How dare I deceive you, gentlemen? It's good that you understand. Take the money and get out. The man in sunglasses threw out a stack of money, and the man ran away without any guts. The strong men in black understood with disdain, but when they looked at the wooden box, they changed their faces to hungry ones. Don't worry, everyone has a share. Lei Jinnan, the leader, called out soothingly, slowly opened the lid of the box, slowly took out the black items inside and distributed them to each subordinate. Then everyone slowly opened the package, slowly revealing the white popsicle inside. That's right, it was the popsicle that Yujun was licking now. And this was the beach where she met them by chance that day. The things hidden in those abrupt containers on the shore were certainly not the smuggled black goods she mistakenly thought, but a film set, a temporary studio for shooting commercials. And what she held in her hand was the milk popsicle that she heard them say in the hospital that the raw materials were very pure and the taste was good. Yonga, as usual, chose the security business that his brothers could easily handle after bleaching, but because of his personal preference, he insisted on running an ice factory. So Yanxi took over this case that was said to be very challenging, not only to promote the reliability of the security business, but also to prove the deliciousness of milk ice. For this reason, they specially went to Italy to order the costumes and lighting required for the shooting, and what she heard in the hospital was their overly abbreviated conversation. How is it? Not bad later. They will tear off their clothes and shine white light on their bodies to emphasize the whitened image of the underworld. Finally, a memorable slogan will be displayed on the screen, and the whole idea will be roughly completed. Mu Ping also came over with a popsicle in his hand. Yujun glanced at him with a dull look. Ever since she guaranteed to Yan Shi, she has deliberately kept a low profile and not provoked Mu Ping when she saw him. As time went by, Mu Ping, who was asking for trouble, gradually learned to get along with her peacefully, but it just felt more boring. Yujun did not answer, and Mu Ping followed quietly to watch the staff dispatch. After a while, she spoke weakly. Hey, do you think I'm stupid? I was completely wrong from beginning to end. Yes. Not worthy of your big brother? That's right. Mu Ping nodded without hesitation. I thought she would be as angry as before, but she didn't say anything, and silently stared at Yan Shi, who was directing in the field. Hey, are you okay? He was not used to the overly quiet Lu Yujun. Yujun smiled back at him. It doesn't matter if they are a good match or not. I just want to rely on him. Then he smiled and watched Yanshi approach them. What are you talking about? He patted Yujun's head, and his gentle smile was full of doting. She also squinted her eyes in ecstasy like a well-behaved cat, with a sweet expression. Nothing. I told Muping that it is a very happy thing to have a big brother as a backer. Oh. Also, the popsicles sold by Brother Yong are great. They will definitely be popular. Oh. Your advertisement is also good. Really? Hey. Didn't I tell you that your speaking habits are very bad? Don't you want to change them? Really? See, here it comes again. She had only been acting like a docile kitten for a short while when she revealed her wildness, and punched Yanshi with a delicate cry. Muping watched the two of them talking and walking, and had to mourn for his elder brother's reputation, and sympathize with their slow love even more. Look, 5 months have passed, and their progress is limited to the position of their hands and Yujun's smile. Her smile now looks more like a woman and more disgusting, and her hands on her elder brother have also dropped from shoulders to waist. In addition, they are still slowly groping. Time flies and the years pass by. Yanshi and Yujun finally dated safely to the point of marriage. Although they have experienced many storms, they have finally achieved a happy ending. But now there was a small commotion at the wedding banquet. Are you sure you didn't marry into a gangster? Yin Zhuoling pulled Yujun in before she entered the venue and asked in a low voice, careful not to let the black-clad troops next to her hear. Didn't I say that? Yanshi and the others are all advertising people. Today, to celebrate our marriage and to commemorate our acquaintance, we agreed to wear black suits and sunglasses. And the colleagues from the hospital came here in uniforms to compete with them. Yujun explained helplessly. She sighed several times because of the strange scene inside tonight. There was a corner in the banquet hall that was clearly divided into black and white. The black ones were all men with evil looks. The white ones were all pretty women. They looked dazzling but got along well. For this reason, she didn't care too much. Her best friend didn't let her go. She kept asking her questions all night, and the question was always the same. Are you sure Chi Yan's hockey is not a gangster boss? Zhuoling asked again without giving up. Sure. Yujun nodded weakly. If I had known that she had so many questions, I should have let her meet Yanshi before the wedding, so that she would not be accused of secretly getting pregnant without reporting it, and Yanshi could also explain his identity to her in person. It's annoying. Why is it so annoying to have a troublesome relationship now? What a pity, he said with a swagger. Zhuoling propped up her chin and looked at the groom, and couldn't hide her disappointment in her words. Please forgive me. I'm so glad that he is not. Yujun almost wanted to kneel down and thank God. Zhuoling turned to look at her, shook his head, and said with doubly disappointment, It's a pity to match you. Hey, is this what a good friend should say? Yujun heard the words, crossed her hands, and immediately put on the posture of a big sister, regardless of how elegant her wedding dress was, and the long-lost arrogance came out. I saw an acquaintance. I don't have time to care about you. As a result, the other person waved his hand and left. She stood there awkwardly, not knowing how to end the conversation in the face of the strange looks from the bystanders. We should go in. Fortunately, Yanshi took her hand calmly and solved her dilemma in time. Yujun looked at her life partner affectionately, thinking with emotion that he was the best and always tolerated her. She couldn't live without him in this life. Yanshi looked at the black-clad troops, then glanced at her and sighed imperceptibly. He was destined to be the omnipotent big brother for the rest of his life.